been a buyer, we'll never tire. We do not comply. We do not comply.
We are here with, do you go by Gwen or Gwyneth?
Either one, usually Gwen. But
Gwen's your move?
Definitely.
Gwen and Scott Fowler. And you guys are from where? What part of Pennsylvania are you from?
From Windsor Township, Berks County.
Windsor Township. In Berks County?
Yes.
Okay.
There is another Windsor Township in Pennsylvania.
And I ran into you guys at a Jamie Walsh, I guess, hey, we won an official, like, the votes are in and we won by 4 votes party.
Yeah, it was a bit of a celebration.
I remember that.
Yeah. So, and then I got to talking to you guys about solar, and you guys have been fighting like this big fight down in Berks against, I guess, this green energy, whatever it is. And some of the stuff that you sent me that I looked over last night was the first thing I clicked was the aggressive ones where you're like, we want to play the clips of these.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap. I didn't realize that did that. So can you tell me what's life like down in where you guys are from?
So if we look over at the monitor, we have.
Oh, you want to pull the monitor up right now?
Yeah.
All right. So
I have some pictures to show the audience.
Folks, we're jumping in quick. All right. No getting to know you. No romance. No dinner. No nothing. We're just jumping in.
I like my notes and I like my visuals. What can I say?
Did you pull that up?
Yeah, I'm already on that.
Okay, you're the best, Dan.
Look at that.
Look at that. I gave you a compliment.
Merry
today.
Christmas, everybody.
Happy holidays. All right, what are we looking at here?
All right, so for the first slide here, we're looking at my presentation that I presented as testimony. So this is a panoramic image of where they would be building part of the solar farm.
Is that by your house?
This is about, this specific location here is probably about a mile from our house. The closest edge to our property is probably about 0.56 miles from our house.
And what year is this? What year did they start deciding to do this? Did you hear about it?
So
how did you hear about it?
So we actually heard about it because we got involved in local politics. So we joined
Oh, shame on you. Why would you do that?
We joined our Republican committee, and someone mentioned it at a meeting, and then we went to the meeting the following night and we met some concerned residents, and that's when we learned about the project. That was in April 2023.
April of 2023?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to start shit, but like what made you guys go, no, I don't like this?
For me, it was just the large scale of it, seeing how big of a project it would be. It's 440 acres of farmland that they wanted to turn into a solar farm.
And this is agricultural land, right?
Yeah, it's actively being farmed. I mean, obviously in this photo, it's been harvested, but it was growing corn this year and other crops.
And everyone seemed to be like, we don't like this.
Yeah. So if you go to slide 2, Dan, I have some more pictures here just to show the audience.
I think for me as well, we actually heard a little bit about this in the 22 election.
Yeah.
One of the people that was running for state reps mentioned there's this Windsor farm coming to solar. There's this solar farm coming to Windsor Township, and it's like, oh, and then we saw stakes in the field, that kind of stuff,
like surveying signs. And
so
like, oh boy,
we figured like, well, we're like too late in this game, and then we hear about
like you think you're too late, like, oh, there's nothing we can do about it.
It's already in the process, right? It's a done deal. So when we find out that it actually isn't a done deal, we went to a meeting. We found out about a citizen group meeting that was being held, and that's really how we got involved. And that was back in April, I believe, of 23.
Yep, April 20th, 2023.
I would put a house there. Like that's how beautiful that is.
I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, it happened to be a beautiful day. There wasn't really a cloud in the sky, but I mean, that whole area in the front there with that woods, that would all be developed.
At that one farm that's in the valley below where the cursor is on the screen there, with the red barns, you can see that's actually a preserved farm. That's the Sunday farm.
Yeah.
So
what's a preserved farm?
They can't actually develop it. The development rights have been sold essentially. I think it's a state program that's administered through the county. They have so much money available. So if you want to go into ag preservation and you're eligible, and they base it on zoning as to what tracts would be eligible, you can get paid essentially for the development rights.
Interesting.
Now, I don't know if it's quite what you would get selling it in the free market, but essentially you get something for saying, hey, we're never going to develop this. And then there's a deed restriction placed on the property.
Okay, I'm learning new stuff already. So you want to continue taking me down this path of
Yeah, so if we move on to slide 3, Dan, this one is a picture. The property right in front of us here is Gaspari's farm, and then the property in the background where you see where it's like alternating green and like dark green before you get to the gap, that's Mr. Frederick's property. He's the other farm that was involved with this project.
That gap is where the Schuylkill River comes through the Blue Mountain.
Oh, really? That little
on the
dip
left.
in okay.
On the left there. That's
All
just north of the borough of Hamburg.
And you'll notice to the right of those green fields, you'll see that there are houses there along there. That's Blyall Road. There's quite a few houses along there.
Okay, so this is in its natural state.
Yes.
As it should be.
Yeah.
So what? Tell me. I know that like up in Clark Summit, they were basically Newton. They were trying to put in a solar farm, and people got a little up in arms. But I don't think anyone has the scope and breadth of what this means for a community, for the environment, for the future. So, at what point, like, were you always active in this stuff, or did you always, or was this your first foray into like, I'm going to say Aaron Brockovich? Did you still not watch it?
I haven't watched it yet.
Did you watch the trailer I at least sent you?
I did not.
You didn't even watch the trailer? I spent an hour and a half looking at your shit last night. You didn't even watch the 2-minute trailer for Aaron Brockovich?
I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I
wrote like 6 pages of notes.
No. It's totally cool. So what was like, did you always care? I'm just trying to understand, like, because I think people need to understand how they're not just weak and they're not powerless. They can get involved and they can do something.
I guess I'll back up a little bit.
Yeah.
So like for me, I kind of woke up politically really hardcore during COVID. During the tyranny of COVID.
Oh, you and me. Okay. Good.
So I went out there and protested against the
lockdowns and the
lockdowns, the job mandates and everything. I didn't want people to lose their jobs and stuff like that. So when Canadians had their convoy in Canada, I followed that every single day. And then we had a convoy in America, and I followed that until it got to the East Coast. And then we actually went down to Hagerstown, Maryland to cover it as independent media because we knew the press wasn't going to give it fair coverage.
No.
And that's where I met Americans from all over the country, talked about all sorts of things. And that's when I was like, the only way we're going to change these things is if we get those politicians out of office that are not doing their jobs.
So it's like, it's us.
Yeah.
Like we are the ones that have to do that.
So that's why we got involved locally, politically. We, started with trying to get our school board fixed. We got involved with Moms for Liberty. That's how we found out about our school board.
Oh, I keep hearing they're a terrorist group. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, totally.
Like how they
it's just the typical left smear.
Yeah.
Just destroy your character. Oh, they're a bunch of whatever. And they're just regular people that care about their kids.
Yeah, I went to a Moms for Liberty meeting and I'm like, and then like you read on like the internet or the news and it's like these domestic terrorists and I'm like, what? Everybody I knew was like just a mom who's like,
or dad.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so like we went to only one Berks County Moms for Liberty meeting. It happened to be the last one. We didn't know that at the time.
Okay.
And we found out that our school district, Kutztown School District, had a school board pack. So we were able to find out where they were having meetings and join them. So we were able to take control of our school board this last time around, which was pretty awesome.
Okay. So moving forward.
Yeah,
you guys are badasses.
Yeah, going back to the solar.
Yeah,
we found out that the supervisors for Windsor Township, there's 3 of them. So we knew one was probably a yes vote, and the other 2 we didn't know. But one of them was up for re-election. So we're like, it's not too late to run a write-in campaign. And that was after,
Well, that was all at the first meeting that we were at. We show up. We have no idea. We don't know anybody. The room is packed. We're walking in like 2 minutes late, and it's like, who are these people walking in here? So we just quietly take a seat in the back, and they're talking about how the way things are being run in the township, and they don't like it. And I said something to the effect, it sounds like you're not happy with your leadership. And one of the residents responded, he said, that's an understatement.
And I responded, like, it's not too late to do a write-in campaign for the primary election. And they're like, oh, that's an interesting idea. And people thought it over, and then we came back for another meeting like a week later. I think it was May 1st. And someone's like, yeah, I'm tossing the idea around about running. And he finally committed, I think, like a day or so later. So we pulled off a write-in campaign with 10 days for the primary election. And our candidate won both sides of the ballot.
You're kidding me.
And we beat the incumbent. I'm not kidding. If we'd never done this before.
And that's when Jamie told me that statistic where it's like the probability of you beating an incumbent is like 99-1. Like they win 99% of the time.
We had a couple of advantages.
Yeah, definitely.
The one was this supervisor up for re-election. He was
appointed.
That's right. He had been appointed, so nobody knew him.
And he didn't really campaign.
Yeah, and he thought it was kind of like an easy primary, just be on the ballot, do nothing. That's what he did. And our candidate got literature together. He went out and he was with his family out at the poll all day, talking to people. He
also mailed out a postcard to all Republicans and Democrats in the township.
And we looked at the numbers. We'd done a little research on this, and it looked doable. It would be tough, but we thought he could win, and we could also, if we can't beat the Republican in the incumbent in the primary, nobody was running on the Democrat side of the ticket, so we could get enough signatures.
So these are Republicans.
Yeah, Windsor Township is mainly Republican area. But we figured we'll throw everything we have at this, and worst case, he runs as a Democrat,
Right.
But he won on both sides, so he was unopposed in the November election, and he won.
And it was, it was an election. It was 24 vote differential.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot of votes.
Just 20 more than Jamie.
It was like 126 versus 150. It was numbers in that order. It wasn't a huge amount of turnout. So
the difference, though, is he had to collect those votes. Like, you don't just get the votes when someone writes you, and you actually have to go and collect them from the county and get the spelling errors.
He had to meet people and say, will you write me in on the ballot? Because that's what people had to do. So enough people did.
My God.
Yeah.
That's like unheard of. Like a write-in for people to win for that.
It
did get some notoriety in the region.
Yeah, at least I kind of got famous for it in Berks County as being a Republican committee woman.
Because you're right, it's hard to do.
Yeah. So this guy was obviously he saw the world as you saw it.
Yeah, and he
to some degree
he saw the world similarly, and he also knew that you have to follow the ordinances when you're implementing policy. Okay. So if you're applying to build a solar farm, it needs to comply. He wasn't running to say, "Hey, I don't want the solar farm," just because I don't want the solar farm.
He understood there was law that had to be followed.
Like some people in the group,
a lot of the times they look the other way, and that's how stuff gets by.
Yeah.
Okay. So all right, let's get into this, because I know you're excited about it. And I am too. I just have no idea what you're going to tell me.
Yeah. So one of the first things I did was try to learn as much as possible about solar farms. So I tried to find out about other projects. So I learned about a project in Mountjoy Township, which is in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania area. Mm-hmm. And I made some contacts on Facebook with them. So I met Tom and Todd from Gettysburg, and they were fighting a 1,000-acre solar farm.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So that one was 18 farms. So I asked them some questions and advice, because they had hired an attorney to fight their project because it was pretty big. And they gave me so much good advice. So some of it I want to share with our viewers. So like one of the things they did to make the community aware is they went door knocking. So they went to like Staples, got maps printed out of like what the project was going to be, so that people could see like the scale of it. Because it's hard to picture 18 farms when you're just, this
1,000 acres took 18 farms?
Yeah, it was going to be 18 farms.
Okay.
So they did that, and then they did a petition. We also did a petition locally as well, but their petition, they got 966 signatures. We had about like 368. I just checked that last night. So like petitions, I mean, some people say they're not worth the time, but it does make an impact when you give it to your supervisors. Like, look at all these people are against it.
Yeah.
So like, I think it can help.
So what did the petition say? Like, what was it? Like, what was its main thing? It's like, we're against, or we want this looked into, or what was the basis of the petition?
I don't recall what it said, actually.
It's just like the grand idea of
it. It wasn't the best written petition, that's for sure. But it's essentially, I guess it'd be better to say, what should it say? Is it should probably say that, we are not against solar, because I think that's an important point we should bring up here, is that we're not against the technology. I think it's really the farmland loss that is our concern.
The productive farmland.
And that's really what the petition was trying to focus on, is that this is going to change the character of the area. It's going to destroy farmland. And that's really the focus, not like, oh, we don't want solar just because we don't want solar.
No. I didn't think that. I think there's this thinking that it's like when you say green energy, people are immediately like, you don't like windmills, you don't like this, you don't like that, and I don't think that's what it is. I think it's like there's a place in an area for that, and I don't think I used to live in LA, man. When you drive out to like Vegas or something, you would see. I'm not talking acres. I'm talking miles and miles and miles of those huge windmills.
Yeah,
and I thought it was gross. I'm like, this looks like some sort of like. Who's that guy that was, he did like 12 Monkeys, the director, Terry Gilliam. Yeah, it's like a weird Terry Gilliam movie where you're just like standing out there and you're just like, there's just acres and acres and acres of windmills.
We experienced something similar in West Texas.
Yeah,
that there was a lot of windmills.
People around here can't grasp what that looks like when you're around it.
I know, and
it feels alien.
It does. It feels like a different planet.
Yeah.
And the other thing I noticed is all the power lines everywhere.
Everywhere.
It's just a network, a mesh of all these power lines connecting everything together.
Yeah, I think there's like this big misconception about like people who are now viewed as conservatives is that they're totally against that. And I don't think that most conservatives I know are like, I want to be off the grid. Mm. I want to make sure that like I produce my own power. I have my own clean water source, blah, blah, blah. But it's never like, oh, we should do 8,000, wind turbines and solar farms. It's gross.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. Yeah, which I think we'll get into.
Yeah, we'll definitely be getting into that. I would say the best recommendations for solar would be if you want it for your business, have it. If you want it on your personal property, fine. I'd recommend against putting it on your roof, which we'll get into later.
Yes, we will.
But other places you could be like the abandoned mine lands over parking lots, like Princeton University. They have it over parking lots. Rutgers University.
I've seen that. That's a good idea.
I mean, it gives you shade and they get power. So it's kind of a win-win and you're not destroying farmland because it's already destroyed. So
do you, before we get into like what you guys went through, like, and I know I keep interrupting you, do you think that a lot of these companies pop up because there's like grant money or incentives to go?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they get like 30%.
So if they didn't have those things, do you think that these things would be popping up?
No.
This is one of the big problems is that this is all being driven by the federal government's tax credit program. These folks get 30% tax credits off the top when they build this thing. So if it's a $100 million investment, they get a $30 million kickback from the government, which is essentially taxpayer debt since the federal government's bankrupt. Mm-hmm. So it's
what are we at 35 trillion right now? Is that where it's at?
I don't want to know.
Or more. Yeah. I mean, it's further than the miles to the nearest star. You know, it's outrageous. Mm-hmm. So
I've never heard it put that way. I was like, holy shit, that really puts it into perspective.
Alpha Centauri is, quote, the closest star, obviously, other than the sun, which is always the joke, but, Alpha Centauri's 4 light years. It's roughly 25 trillion miles away.
There is more debt than there are miles to Alpha Centauri.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, we're kind of into astronomy, so like we compare like how far a car's gone like towards the moon.
That makes total sense. All right. Well, it gives it perspective for people because it's hard to grasp. $35 trillion is hard to grasp.
I know.
So, all right. So there is an incentive.
30%, right? Okay. They have that, and then they also have
energy credits.
I think it's called modified accelerated depreciation. They can depreciate their equipment over a 5-year period. So there's a lot of tax incentive. So that's why we're seeing the assault here in Pennsylvania and other places where you look and say, this isn't a great place for solar. It's, it's cloudy, it's rainy, it's winter. There's a lot of, in fact, when you look at the statistics, you only get about 20%, an averaged out amount of energy from what you would get at, say, peak noon on a sunny day. If you average that solar load out over 24 hours, it's what they call in the industry a capacity factor, 20%. is what you get. So let's say I build a power plant and it generates 50 megawatts of power and it's doing that 24/7. That's a capacity factor of 100%. If I build the same thing in solar, 50 megawatts, my capacity factor is only 20%. I'm only getting 1/5 the same equivalent power because, solar doesn't work very well at night. So you're down to 50% just out of the gate because it's dark half the time. And then you've got the rain, you've got the clouds, you've got late morning, late afternoon sun, which isn't as strong. So you're down to 20% compared to, say, Arizona or California, where your numbers are closer to 30%. So the economics aren't for this area other than for the tax incentives.
Oh, my God.
Didn't you look up the local power plant to see how many Windsor Township project sizes that would be?
Yeah, I mean, we could look.
Well, we always like to give it away for people to scale like what the size of our project would be.
Yeah, you blew my mind with Alpha Centauri. So let's just keep going of using those analogies.
Well, yeah, we did look at that stuff before. I mean,
so it's 440 acres in Windsor Township for 50 megawatts, but they were really building 64 megawatts because only 50 was going into the grid.
Now we looked. Susquehanna is your nearest nuclear power station, I think, to this area.
Berwick. I think
that's called Susquehanna.
Is that what it's called?
I think so, yeah. So there's 2 units that are running there, and each one is 1,350 megawatts. And just so, you don't get too bogged down with the numbers. I mean, we normally think, when we get our electric bill, it's in kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
A megawatt is 1,000 times more than a kilowatt. So we're talking about essentially 1.35 gigawatts. So it's a pretty high number. And you've got 2 units there. So your total output,
the hell is 21? A gigawatt?
It's 1,000 megawatts.
No, gigawatts. That was gigawatts.
Yeah, that's right. That's the next one.
Yeah. Is a gigawatt a thing above gigawatt?
No.
All right.
That was
1.21.
That was
1.21 gigawatts. All right.
Yeah. So 2,700. That's what Susquehanna can produce when both units are online. Now,
holy crap.
If you believe Wikipedia, Wikipedia, right? 85% is the capacity factor. So the power plant's online a lot. It's not all the time. It's down for certain reasons. Maybe it's at reduced power, but the capacity factor is 85%. So when you just look at the number, 2,700 megawatts, and you say, okay, this project that we were fighting was what, 50, 64, depending on what numbers you use.
Yeah.
It came out to be a lot of solar farms to actually produce the amount of power that the nuclear power plant can do. I think I actually have that number here somewhere. So it is 54 of these things that we were fighting that can generate the same amount of power as both of those units there on the Susquehanna River.
54.
It takes 54 of them.
Times 440 acres.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you take 54 of them, you get 87 square miles is the total area that you would need.
Of solar farms?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty high.
To be the equivalent of one nuclear power plant.
Both the units that are there.
Okay. Well, one place, but with 2 units. And then what was it? Fukushima had 4. I think Peach Bottom has 2 or 3. That really puts it into perspective about how much impact it would have as far as area.
Yeah, tell them how many Scrantons it worked out to be.
Oh, how many?
This is okay. Now you're speaking my language. All right.
Well,
Alpha Centauri and Scranton.
Yeah. Okay.
And Lackawanna County.
How many Lackawanna counties would this be?
Oh, it didn't. Lackawanna is pretty big. You wouldn't need
Scranton.
You wouldn't need the
how
whole
many
county.
Scrantons?
3.5, roughly.
You're shitting me. 3.5 Scrantons.
Well, you take Scranton, Taylor, Moosic, Old Forge, Dunmore, Troop, Dixon City. Am I saying all these things right?
Yes, you are.
Oliphant.
Oliphant.
I was right.
Okay.
I called it.
Sorry.
You did the Lord of the Rings version.
Yeah, the OnlyFans. Yes, I remember those. Yeah.
I see you avoided Troop.
Blakely, Jessup, Archbald. Archbald's actually a pretty big area. But if you had all of them together, you'd have enough real estate to build one of these things.
Oh my God.
And that's assuming it's daylight.
And not raining.
Yeah.
And no clouds.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
okay. So now let's that's the Goliath. How did David approach Goliath? I'm going to get you back to what you were trying to talk about before.
Yeah, so I just wanted to briefly go back to
because I think people need perspective on like what it is that we're talking about, because people think like my neighbor's got like 6 of them on his roof. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about like half of Lackawanna County, that really puts it into perspective.
Yeah. I don't know how we have our modern lifestyle on solar panels.
You can't.
You need, where do you store all this electricity at night? You need a huge amount of batteries or some other storage device to level out the power. The nuclear power plant can just purr along, putting out power.
Yeah.
Where solar is up and down all day long, depending on the weather.
The other thing with the grid that people don't realize with the solar is with that fluctuating, all the power grid has to, take that into account. So all the switches, so all the switches and all that to change what's going on with the power grid. So like if you have a coal plant, you can't just shut off a coal plant if you don't need it. It's kind of like having a wood stove running. Once you get it going and cooking, it's cooking for a while.
So what you're saying is even with solar, it's like it has to be like heavily paid attention to and maintained, because and that's all a lot from source to delivery. People have to be manning that. So it's actually more work.
Yeah.
Right? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, it's more work, and inevitably I feel like it's going to end up wearing more parts out because you got all those transitions.
It's a challenge for the grid operators to manage this, because there's no surge capacity in the grid. The power network has to generate the exact amount of power that's being used. So they have to be able to dynamically adjust output based on consumer loads and industrial loads.
Yeah, and then what happens in the summer, what happens in the winter, and because all those change. If you're going to run your heater or you're going to run your AC unit.
Right.
That changes everything. The load. I mean, that's what Texas was going through in California when they were, doing rolling blackouts and stuff like that. It's like, go outside. Don't turn on your AC.
Yeah. So as long as these things are a small contribution to the total, you can kind of handle those fluctuations. But if you want to make this thing, say, 30% of your total output power that's supplying the grid, now you've got really management issues on how you regulate all that. Because what does that look like in the real world? At noontime, we're generating too much electricity from the sun. So we've got solar fields that get switched off because there's too much power. We'll see things like that start to happen. And I don't know how that's going to go, but that was kind of a tangential thing to what, in our deep dive into this, what we looked at. The focus I think you want to get to is, the whole issue with zoning. That's really what this came down to.
Yeah.
In zonings, that's where the politics comes into it.
Yeah. So I'll go back one step. You were asking, why did we want to fight this?
Yeah.
There was another solar farm near us that was built in Richmond Township in Berks County. It's called the Lyons Solar Farm. It's near Fleetwood, Pennsylvania. So that one's roughly 103 acres. I don't remember the megawatts for that. Was it 20 megawatts?
That was 20, yeah.
And so we went over to study it. Like a good investigative journalist, we went over to study it and kind of see as they were building it, because that one was way too late. We couldn't do anything about that. There was like 3 residents that tried to stop it, and they just got steamrolled, unfortunately. So they got approved and they started building it, and it took over a year of construction for them to build it. So we went out there with our drone, took some imagery, and showed what it looked like. And it's like, this looks like Mars.
Yeah.
We'll show some of that later, but we did that, and we found out it destroyed the farm as well across the street. It's like, yikes, this is fairly flat land, and where in Windsor Township, it's fairly hilly. There's steep slopes, and everybody's on well water. So if they don't control that erosion, we're going to have a problem.
There are a lot of things at play when it comes to this, and I don't think greed thinks about that.
No.
So, all right. So you're a good investigative journalist. You find out these things.
Yeah. So we get to the bottom of it. So we joined the group. We kind of tossed some ideas around. We did some informational literature, got people informed in the community. And then I decided to create a research committee. So a few people volunteered to help me out. So we worked on that. We put together a packet that we used to educate the township supervisors and the planning commission, the engineer, and the solicitor. The group did hire an attorney to try to fight this project because it was going to go through a conditional use hearing process. And he didn't really want us to present that information, but the
information that you guys gathered.
He felt like we were going to be tipping our hand. He thought it was a bad idea to do it before the hearings. But I talked to my contacts at Gettysburg, and they said it's better to inform your township folks because they go in there knowing more about what these things do. They'll make a more informed decision.
Yeah, you don't want to. The lawyers who think that they have to have like the courtroom third act where it's a big surprise is still one of those things that's bizarre to me. You know?
Yeah, like I'll never forget like early on in those meetings because like I went through all their documents. So like I got the application, I went through all the exhibits, I read everything, I typed up a thing. So when he first came to visit, he's like, "Who's Gwen?" I was like, "That's me." He's like, "This is a really good document." But he's like, didn't want us to use it until the hearings. I was like, we got to use this now.
She needs to watch Aaron Brockovich.
I can't believe you didn't watch it.
Yeah. All right, keep going.
I know JB Walsh told me to watch it. I got to do that. But yeah. So like right away, I noticed that the lease agreements with the farmers were with a different company. They were with Leeward Renewable Energy instead of Mountain Trail Solar. I'm like, that seems like a problem. I'm not a land use expert. I don't know much about zoning, but that doesn't seem legal.
These solar companies are like nesting dolls.
I know. I meant to buy one for the show and I forgot.
The littlest doll on the inside here was called Mountain Trail Solar.
Yeah.
And it went inside the doll called Leeward Renewable Energy Development, LLC.
At least we think it did.
We think it did, yeah. And then that was inside the Leeward Renewable Energy,
LLC.
which is inside the...
Hold on. I have it written down.
This is a Canadian company now. That's the bigger doll.
It was Omer's Infrastructure Management, Inc. And then it was in the bigger Omer's.
Yeah. So they create these I'll call them shell companies.
Yeah.
Because I think that's really what they are.
Well, it's the shell is a bigger shell over this shell and over this shell. So I don't think it's inappropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have, for every project, they create an entity. And I figure that's because... Well, if we go bankrupt, we just, toss
liability.
That
That shell company can disappear, and we will lose nothing. Not a big deal.
Yeah, and I guess there's tax games involved with all these things as well.
Well, I think they do that in the pharmaceutical industry too. If I remember correctly, at the beginning of COVID, it was like, who owns what? Who's doing what?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like you said, it's a Russian nesting doll.
And the funny thing about that comment is that she would try to get that information out in testimony during the hearings, and they would just evade answering her question. The whole room would go silent when she said, "Who do you work for?" And then you wait for the response. Everybody wanted to know the answer, like who works for who and who's in charge of who, and they would evade the answers.
If this is such a good thing, if solar's such a good thing, why be so secretive about it? You don't have to answer that. Continue with your... We'll let the audience figure out what that means. Go watch Aaron Brockovich.
So like one of the things I did with the research committee is I started looking to see if there was any other projects going on. So I got reached out by a friend from Polk Township in Monroe County. And they're like, "Hey, we got a solar project that just came in, like an application. Can you help us fight it?" I'm like, "Well, I just started my fight. I mean, I can attend your meetings and, try to give you advice." And she's like, "Yeah, I appreciate that." So we actually went to almost all their hearings. We missed only one, but we had a good excuse. We went for the total solar eclipse. So it was kind of a once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
So
screw your energy, solar farm. We want to watch how powerful the moon is. Yeah, keep going.
But so we watched their hearings, which were very interesting and very eye-opening. We hadn't gotten that far in the process, so we were able to learn how they present their case, they bring their experts, and they basically say, "Oh, well, we'll comply with your ordinances or future compliance." Basically trying to whine and bribe the township into saying like, "Hey, we got this. We'll do what you say. Just trust us." Wink.
Yeah, how it always goes.
But the Polk residents, sometimes we would describe them as the angry mob. So I would definitely say don't underestimate intimidation because boy, did it work for Polk Township.
And I think what part of it there too was that I don't think the residents really understood what a conditional use hearing is. It's actually kind of a quasi judiciary process.
Yeah,
they actually have a stenographer there. They follow rules of protocol as far as testimony goes. People think it's just another township meeting. It's like, no, actually it's not. It's like kind of like going to court.
They didn't realize their F-bombs and stuff were being recorded.
And also, you have to act the attorney if you're parties, like we became parties.
Yeah.
If you are cross-examining their witness. That's what you're doing. You're asking them questions. You're not editorializing. If you have to build a little bit of a foundation for your question, it's okay. But you have to ask questions and they have to respond. You don't get to say, I'm against this. That's not the time and place for it.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting process because most people don't understand that's how these things are.
Yeah. And the problem with Polk is they found out only like 3 days before the hearing. So they didn't know it was coming until like, surprise, because they put the public notices in newspapers that people don't read anymore.
Yeah, that's weird.
Because it's a requirement that they have to advertise it.
Yeah, there's like a legal requirement. Do you know how much a rabbit hole you can go down one day is figure out how much they spend each year on doing public notices that no one reads.
I think they just said last night in our township meeting that it was like $500
Yeah,
for a public
$500.
notice.
Yeah, and how many do they do per year?
I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot.
You know what you're better off doing? Putting that $500 to a Facebook post, like a boost.
Or actually update the website.
Sure. Check out the website or like an email list or notifications. They spend money in terrible, stupid places anymore.
Yeah, it's not just the federal government that's got a spending problem. It's local government too.
Local, totally.
Yeah.
All right, continue on your saga.
Yeah, so we helped out people at Polk Township. We gave them advice that we received from Gettysburg. Because Gettysburg ended up going to the courts. So they ended up with a 2-2 draw because they have 5 supervisors. So the one was recused because he was involved with the project. So it was 2-2. And then, so it went
everywhere, Dan. It's everywhere.
Well, Gettysburg
it actually
told
is.
us.
It is. It is everywhere.
Gettysburg told us that's what the solar company does. They find a way into the township. It's either the zoning hearing board, the planning commission, a supervisor, somebody who's an official. They find their way to them, and that's how they try to get in.
Oh my God!
And it was planning commission in our case because at least with the second round of this application, which is the one we were involved with, the one parcel was the chair of the planning commission's parcel.
Oh,
so it was like 100 plus acres that the chair of the planning commission was his property.
And what's interesting is the chair of the supervisors wrote the solar ordinance the first time.
How much would that person benefit if that's their land?
We are not privy to those documents, so we don't know. But we know farmers, and we've received letters that you can get up to $2,000 an acre if you do the solar.
And that guy had how much?
He had...
It was around 100, I believe.
170.
And is that continuous money, like almost gas rights?
Like every year. It was an annual lease, I think. Yeah.
It was annually. He would have got $2,000 per acre.
155 acres was his
acres.
parcel.
What's that, 300K a year?
Yeah.
But keep in mind, that means he doesn't have to farm it.
Sure.
So, like, he's saving on the farming costs.
I mean, it's from a farmer's perspective.
Sure. It's a great idea.
It's worth thinking about.
Sure.
Like, wow, that's a lot of income. Maybe I should do that. So I can understand their perspective. The thing that we ran into, the concerns we ran into was that what happens when these companies go bankrupt? They don't keep these things once they build them.
Yeah.
Because of the tax credits, that's why they're there. They're there to build them and get the tax credits, and then they flip them.
Yeah, like Lyons Solar Farm that we talked about. They flipped it already.
So they just slowly sell it at a lesser cost. Well, they sell it once, and then the next person does the same damn thing.
It goes until whoever's left holding the bag.
And then that person eventually goes bankrupt, and no one can do anything with the solar farm.
Yeah, and if you don't have a decommissioning bond up front, not all the townships have that. You could end up with a pretty huge bill on the taxpayers.
You could end up with 100,000 solar panels in your backyard that are now yours that you might have to deal with.
Oh my God. All right, keep going. Now I know how Sam Faddis feels when he comes on here.
Yeah, so we did it. Like I said, we helped out at Polk. They ended up winning. They won. We had a few people there that actually testified and did briefs, finding of facts, conclusions of law. They cited the Gettysburg case law and they won. So that was pretty cool.
They did that on their own. No attorney. And it was against Samsung.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got money.
Yeah. So we thought this is going to be tough for them to win.
But I think for Polk, I should have mentioned that it was with another township as well, Chestnut Hill. So like the substation was supposed to be in Chestnut Hill, and that fell through, and they kind of didn't present one for Polk. So they didn't have a way to connect to the grid. So it made it easier for Polk to deny it.
Yeah, but were they still pushing it?
Yeah.
Without having a way to connect to the grid.
Yeah, and they kept changing the story. First there was sheep, then there was no sheep.
Let's build this yacht in this pond. We'll never get it to the ocean.
First the panels rotate, and then they're fixed, and then it's like they're going to be this height, and now they're going to be this height, and then they wouldn't tell them what kind of panels they're going to use. So they just kept changing it all. And then when they asked them for a fire plan, like their fire chief, the Polk fire chief is like a hero to them. He went up and asked them for a fire plan, and they gave him some fire plan for like Canada for another project. It's like, that's not this area.
You can't copy paste your fire plan.
Yeah, well, that's what they did.
Oh, all right. So keep going.
And I think one of the greatest things that one of their witnesses said from Samsung was regarding fires is like, yeah, we do remote monitoring. We don't know how long it would take to get someone on the site. And if there's a fire, we just let it burn.
They just let it burn.
Yeah.
Jesus.
They argue that they will burn themselves out, that it won't be a big fire and it won't spread. So that's their justification for it.
That it's just going to stay in one spot and it's going to
Maybe
just burn there.
Yeah.
Because it's basically what, glass, metal, and plastic.
Well, there's some rare earths in there and silicon.
Eventually, did that turn off again?
That's like the fourth time.
All right, hold on one sec. The camera keeps. Make sure you got the clap in there. Remember where you are. Put a pin in it. Okay.
Not solar power.
And it's a sunny day out there. I don't know why it's not working.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. If our cameras were hooked up to solar power, we'd be having this problem. At least as far as I can tell. All right. So where were we? Fires?
Yeah, we were talking about the Polk Township, that their proposed plan for the fire was to let it burn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that they gave them a Canadian plan from a project up there that was not really applicable.
Now, maybe there's some good reasoning for let it burn, but that's not exactly what you want to tell your neighborhood. Like, oh, we're going to build this thing in your backyard, and if it catches fire, we're going to let it burn.
Yeah.
It's like that didn't go over at all with the group or the township supervisors.
No.
I don't know if you want to get into this now or later, but when it burns, what goes into the atmosphere? Do you know that?
Depends what's in the panels and what's on the site.
There's a lot of plastic material. There's epoxy coatings in there to keep the weather out of the actual elements that generate the power.
Do we want to bring up your slides of the fires?
We have some fire
Do you want
photos.
to do that now?
Yeah, we could do that now.
Yeah, if you'd want
Is that slides or is that the YouTube
It's
stuff?
the slides.
So that would
We'll
be
do
his.
the photos. Yeah.
Can you pull up his document? The Scott document?
Yeah.
Scroll down.
Hold on. I need to switch this on here.
He needs to connect it.
But you get a lot
That's
of
what I saw. I'm like, cadmium.
well,
That's for the Windsor Township project. They were actually going to use cadmium telluride panels, which are different than the normal silicon panels. So they actually have cadmium and telluride in them instead of silicon.
And what do those do? What is cadmium and telluride? What is that?
I think that's more in your court.
well, they're rare earth elements, and when you combine them together, you get a semiconductor property that's a little bit better than the regular silicon is, and so your efficiencies are a little bit better.
They're also thinner, so they're
You need less material,
materials.
which is good because tellurium is actually a fairly rare material. The solar market is using about 30 to 40% of the world's supply of tellurium right now. So it's good you don't need a lot of it. So they call it a thin film technology. The panels are more flexible, so they're a little bit more robust in terms of breakage. They're a little bit cheaper to manufacture too. And one of the pluses, and I'll say this unfortunately because we're dealing with cadmium here, is that it's like one of the few made in USA solar products.
Yeah.
So when you talk about, you're going to buy solar panels, they're coming from China, we're supporting China, cadmium telluride panels are actually made in Ohio by Americans.
Go America.
Yeah, my first solar.
So here we are, playing with cadmium.
You have that pulled up?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want to walk us through what we're looking for here?
Yeah, scroll down.
The fires are later on. This is all the cadmium telluride stuff.
Yeah, he was figuring out how much cadmium is going to be on the
On the property?
On the property.
Yeah, and that gets into the fire concern as well. It's because when you take
Do we want to
cadmium,
stop at arc faults or do you want to keep going?
if you want to look at the fires, just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. Yeah, so here's
okay.
the first one. So this was like one of the rooftop fires for an Amazon warehouse.
And this is kind of typical of what you see. A lot of black smoke. And I think a lot of that is the epoxy materials that are in the panels.
What causes that?
Well, that's where you get into the question of what, a lot of these things are unknown electrical faults or issues. Because
Is that how they're classified? Unknown?
some of them
Some
are.
of them.
It's a DC arc fault effect is what it really is. And that's something that occurs just by the nature of electric current. There's actually a good video that we have that we can show you
Do you
on
have
that
the
one.
YouTube?
I do.
You have the playlist, don't you?
Yes.
If I can see the playlist, because I remember what one it was. And when I saw this last night, I was like, "What?" Not this one.
That's not mine.
Scroll down.
Are you on the fire playlist or the DCR, the other one, the solar education? Solar education, I think, is the one you want. And then
Yeah, right there. That DC solar array. One down. That one.
Yeah,
you
that
can
was a
mute it
good one.
if you want. 'Cause
Liberty Mutual customer.
Thank God. These commercials drive me nuts, and I don't know why I constantly get Liberty Mutual.
I just use ad block.
All right,
Hold on.
this one he can play the. Yeah, I think he can play the audio for this just to hear what the guy says, because I was listening to it last night.
Okay.
One day we're gonna get you faster at this, man.
Well,
So these are 4 solar panels that are fairly typical of what you might put up on your home rooftop or out in your yard, depending on what your setup is. And he's got them all connected in series.
I think you have to clear the
no
YouTube
thanks. Yeah,
message,
you gotta clear that.
and then you can unmute it.
Typically, DC solar systems for homes or businesses have many more. By simply bringing the bare conductors into
So wait,
close
restart this.
proximity, we can simulate
So
a
this
fault on
this is not all. These wires are not are only connected to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like 4 batteries in series.
Okay, so these are 4 solar panels connected to each other, and that's it. There's no other outside power source. There's no other thing that they're plugging
Right.
into. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, they're
just-
getting energy from the
they're
sun.
just out in the sun.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
demonstration showing the intensity of arc faults on DC solar systems. Here we have 4 solar panels connected together in series. Typically, DC solar systems for homes or businesses have many more. By simply bringing the bare conductors into close proximity, we can simulate a fault on the wiring that can
Jesus.
be caused by a variety of factors such as loose connections, corrosion of joints, water ingress, rodents, birds, or ants biting through cable insulation, failed DC isolators, or simply degradation of cable insulation over time. As you can see, with no protection, the arc is very intense, continuous, and a serious risk of fire.
That's insane.
So that's the situation that you can have in a solar array at every connector that's in the system. So if one
At
connection
every connector.
at every connector, because you break the
like panel
connection-
to panel.
Yeah, if you break any of those connections, you have that voltage potential between them, which could produce an arc under the right conditions. So you've got the issue where the connectors might not have been done right, or they deteriorated. There's corrosion, there's water vapor.
I love the one where he says the ants chew
The-
through the
the ants,
insulation.
Yeah. So
Ants?
That's what he said.
there's a finite risk that one of these connections could go bad. Now we were dealing with, the project being proposed in our area was going to be over 100,000 solar panels. So that's a
So
lot.
100,000 of those.
A lot of connections, right? So every one of those connections is a potential arc fault area. Now, that doesn't mean every one results in a fire, but
Could we show one of the up top, Dan, that DC arc flash?
Mhm.
Yeah, hopefully there's no ad. There is. I refuse to pay Google any money.
I don't blame you.
Skip. Sound. Definitely sound for this. Now, this, just to preface, like this could be in the middle of a farm, anywhere where there's solar panels. This could happen, right?
Yes.
Potentially.
potentially.
Potentially. Okay.
And we're not trying to say it's going to happen. It's certain. There's
Well, I mean, look, when you keep selling the solar farm to less and less lucrative businesses, do you know what I mean? Like you were telling before, it's like all they want to
Right.
do is get through the taxes and then sell it.
right.
They're not going to maintain this the way that, the initial builder would maintain it.
And I think that's a point to make, though, is it's not even just the initial company that's building the project, because they're actually sourcing out the engineering, construction, and procurement to other companies.
Oh, of course.
So it's
Everyone has
always
to get
the
money.
lowest bidder. So you're going to get whatever they do.
All right, play this. This is terrifying. That looks like when they pierce like a cell phone battery or a computer battery.
Yeah, it's not real clear what's going on here, but it looks like it's some kind of an arc fault.
Just imagine with the drought we had this summer, how bad that could have gone. You had one of these.
Well, that was one of our concerns, is what's the fire protection plan for something like this?
Look at that. My God.
Oh, my
this
good old
is-
buddy, the pile driver.
So, all right. So, all right. It's, you know what, it's, I'm happy that we're like doing this in a little like Memento sort of way. Like, well, you don't watch movies, so you don't know Memento, but it's kind of out of order.
Hey, I had to save a country. I didn't have time.
But what it's doing is it's like, it's getting us there to understand like the processes of it, because what we're seeing is potential outcomes prior to like, you know, people trying to pass this.
And most places don't have a fire company. Like, when you're very rural, you don't have your own fire company. You rely on neighboring fire companies, and that's the case for Windsor Township. They rely on the Hamburg Fire Company and the Virginville Fire Company, and if needed, they can, you know, call out Kempton or others. So, like, there's no dedicated.
Is crazy.
Yeah, there's no dedicated fire service that can get to these facilities fast enough.
That's why it takes sometimes 5 fire companies to put out a small fire. And say, well, why do you need that many fire companies?
I mean,
it's like, well, there's 3 volunteers on this one and there's 2 on that one.
Yeah.
You know, to aggregate enough people.
and you need like 4 or 5 for a truck to run a truck.
So, you know, volunteerism with fire companies is an issue in itself.
It's like, why are we trying to do this?
It's all about money.
Why are we trying? Like, how did we survive how did farmers survive before solar panels? Like, how did the country survive without solar panels?
Well, you know, it's an interesting question, because the fellow that we helped get elected as a supervisor, his work background is in farming. And he said, when's the last time you drove by a field that wasn't being farmed, that was just sitting there not doing anything? It's like, well, yeah, that's true. Like, somebody's always wanting to farm land that's available.
Sure.
So this argument that these farmers, you know, they can't keep farming or they can't rent their farm, he doesn't believe that very much, because there's always somebody out there that wants to do that. If there's open land, they want to be able to use it.
He didn't think they were advertising it, so the people didn't know about it, that they could farm it. So that's why nobody was farming it.
Because that's one of the things that the solar companies likes to promote, is that, you know, this is a way to exit farming. Well, there's actually somebody that would farm that land if you put it out there in the marketplace. And then the other thing that they like to promote is that it's a solar farm, you know.
Oh,
farm,
yeah.
right?
That's not a farm.
I mean, we're
That's why I jokingly say I eat solar farms for breakfast, because you literally can't eat them.
and we shouldn't even be using the term here, really.
So what would the
I
term
know.
be if it wasn't solar farm?
Utility scale solar, grid scale solar,
electric generating
solar
facility.
power plant.
Yeah,
That's kind of wordy, though.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
So solar farm is just a marketing term.
Yeah.
But it makes it sound like it's okay, right? Like it's
a farm.
And they argue
They're
that
going to put pollinator gardens in it and stuff.
well they do that, but they also argue that you can return it to farming someday.
Yeah. That's the biggest joke.
Is that true? Can you?
Not without a lot of money. Because they strip the topsoil off.
Yeah, if you look
You
at
lose
the,
all that living
if
soil.
you look at the photos of the drone footage that they did over at the Lyons farm and some of the stuff she's found, it's like building any other industrial facility. They come in there and
It's like building a warehouse.
they clear the land. In fact, the one up in Monroe County, Polk Township, they were going to clear maybe 30 acres.
No, it was more than 50 acres of woods.
Of woods.
They were going to cut down.
So when
And
it
they
comes,
claimed they were going to replace each tree, like tree for tree. And someone asked him, like, how many of this, whatever tree it was? They're like, I don't know.
So like how many of this tree was in that forest you cut down?
That you were going to cut down, and they didn't have an answer.
look at all the carbon, quote unquote, right? Carbon that's probably being preserved in that forest. That's all going to go in the atmosphere
Yeah.
once you clear cut it. You're not going to be sequestering carbon anymore in the forest.
Yeah. Let's go back to the fire photos. Let's show them some more fire photos here.
You run this, Gwen. You tell me what. We'll switch seats.
Well, I love the visual. I love the visuals, and I feel like it helps to get it across.
It totally does. I agree with you.
Now, this wasn't all that effective in the hearing, I should note, because a lot of this is what they all call hearsay evidence.
Yeah.
So that's why they bring in experts that can testify firsthand to things. I presented some of this stuff, and they basically said, well, the board will give it its due weight. And that was probably not much weight because it's essentially what they call hearsay
look at
evidence.
I still think it helped with the argument with it going to alter that character of the area.
I think what we were trying to do is show the supervisors this is what happens to your farmland if you do solar.
Yeah.
So this was the fire risk that we were trying to bring the attention to everybody.
Because the applicant kept saying there's not a fire risk, like there's not a big fire risk. And then when he finally did admit later, one of the witnesses admitted that if there is a fire, it would probably burn out before someone actually arrived on the scene. And it's like, that's not really confident.
I was watching
in that.
I watched one, I think it was 25 minutes that you sent me last night. And like the first 7 minutes or maybe even 10 minutes was like, it was just burning and the fire department wasn't even there yet.
Oh, yeah.
Was that the one where you could see it spreading panel to panel?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I sent you the link. I'll have you guys put that in the description. It's like a link of all the different fires that we found online of solar fires. Not necessarily solar farms, but like on buildings and such.
And the fire response was pretty prompt there, but it took a while to stage it, get the hoses up there on the
Well, I
roof.
saw them get up there and they're like, and they just stopped. They were like,
Those fires are hot.
Yeah.
They're really hot. My friends at Gettysburg told me that the fire training, I guess it's based out of Maryland. They don't really have set protocols for large scale solar fires. They don't know how to handle it.
Cause of fire was determined to be an undetermined
Yeah, that's the
electrical event.
that's the arc fault for you.
All they're doing is just showing arrows at shit.
Yeah.
All right, keep going. Jesus. And people are in these buildings, underneath these buildings, right?
I assume so, yeah.
I would think, yeah.
$2 to $4 million in damage.
But keep in mind, it's like all those burnt solar panels, where are they going to end up? Because they always try to tell you that they're going to recycle them at the end like a good neighbor would do. It's like there's not a lot of solar recycling going on. It's much cheaper to just throw it out in the landfill.
Yeah,
So if you got
it's not
toxic
cost effective
chemicals-
to recycle it.
And if you really want to get into the sustainability discussion, that is really a problem. We haven't closed the loop on solar panels. Like really, truly being able to recycle them. Same with windmills.
Yeah.
I know.
And this was on a residential home. They had a...
Oh, this was the house one I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is from...
Was this the guy who was like, my neighbor had them for a year. I was going to test them out and see how he liked them and if he liked that company. And then after a year, I got them and now my house caught on fire.
Yeah, something like that. Unfortunate.
Wow.
I mean, look at the
Dan.
black smoke, though. I mean, that you want to talk about...
This is the one you probably saw the video
I think
on.
that's the one I saw the video on.
Yeah.
But it's look in the middle left there. It looks like a puddle of fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just went one panel to the next once it got started.
Unbelievable. Hey, we love solar.
Now, we don't know if they're spraying foam here or if they're doing water. We're not sure. But they're using some kind of agent.
All right, pause there. I'm going to get another battery for that camera.
Oh, both.
I think you're on me.
Yeah.
This usually doesn't happen, guys. Sorry.
Oh, it's
That's
okay.
okay.
It's more of a headache for you guys.
Yeah, but we just keep going back, and I have to edit.
Mm.
It just makes it so that I have to edit.
More work in post-production.
I'm going to take this battery out, and I'm going to plug this back in, and I'm going to see if this will
If
work.
that
without the
solves
battery
it.
in Yeah. Nope, need a battery. But this will work. This should work now.
We actually got our fire chief to testify. He didn't really testify for us or against us. He was just informational, which was really what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
Just
Is it
try
too hot
to.
in here? You guys good?
Pardon?
Is it too hot in here? You guys good?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I like it warmer.
Yeah, it's not too hot.
Okay. Back up. What do we end on?
The foam or water.
The fire getting put out.
Okay. I said, I love solar. Didn't I say?
I remember like in the early research committee days, like when I mentioned solar fires to my dad, that he's like, "There's no way a solar panel can burn. Like, what could burn in a solar panel?" And then I just started searching on YouTube, and I was like, "Holy cow!"
Yeah.
Oh, they burn.
They can burn.
They can not only can they burn, they can burn well.
Yeah, and then seeing this video where like it went from one panel to the next to the next. So in this one, this is the same one that we saw previously, but they're spraying something on it. We don't know if it's water or if it's a foam or something, but they're obviously...
I never even thought about that. The worst thing, you have an electrical fire, they don't want you to spray water on that. Is that?
Yeah.
Am I mistaken in that?
You're
in
correct.
Thinking that?
It's usually a special foam that they do, but depending on which expert witness is testifying on the stand, they'll say water or they'll say foam. So
You know, my father used to own a construction company, and he would say, you know, the amazing thing is like when you sue somebody, he's like, you know, they'll have their experts from Yale, we'll have our experts from Yale, and they're both saying two different things.
yeah.
And he's like, you know, you pragmatic people are the ones that have to decide that, and you're crossing your fingers to like a jury. It's like people like us got to be like, does this make sense?
Yeah.
Does this make sense to be like doing these things?
Well, and that's what the supervisors have to do in their role. They're basically sitting as judges in the quasi-judicial, you know, role. So they have to figure out which expert or which person's testimony is more credible than the others.
And that's, let's use that as a way to lead us back to what you guys went through. Like, did you have to do that?
Yeah.
You had to talk to your super. You had to present all this. And
Well, we didn't have to, but we wanted to. So backing up to the group. So the group decided to hire an attorney. Initially, we were under the attorney for a few hearings. He was doing really good with cross-examining their witnesses. But then when it came time to present the group's case, we just felt like he kind of fell flat. He wasn't very... It just didn't seem like he was prepared. Like he thought he was going to win on technicality. Remember how I mentioned previously how like the leases were under a different company and the nesting doll scheme of things when they filed the application. So like, he thought he was going to win on that and the case would be over. And basically the township solicitor said, well, the municipal planning code or MPC doesn't give us the right to rule on that. So we have to proceed. So you have to start your case. And it just kind of looked like someone who hadn't done their homework.
Yeah, I think he thought he had the ace card to win the hand.
Yeah.
And they just wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
So it's like,
he, in that moment, it's like, uh-oh.
He was like frantic, like moving around.
it's like
his
all of a sudden
papers.
now he's got to put on his case and his
Yeah.
witnesses, which he had a couple,
Yeah.
but he didn't get that quick kill. You know.
So what happens at that moment? Like what? Like
He had some residents testify, and we also had Dr. Lori Goodrich from Hawk Mountain. Hawk Mountain actually supported us in this fight. They wrote a letter against the project, saying that they preferred a much smaller size solar facility if you're going to build one to do that, because they worried about the impact of solar farms on migrating birds.
And I thought that was very compelling testimony on her part.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's nothing in our ordinances about birds. So unless as a federal
Protected bird, it's not going to help
or
you.
state level protection, Windsor Township, Pennsylvania, doesn't have anything about birds. So spending all that time bringing that expert witness in didn't
help us.
Didn't make any argument other than, yeah, we love birds, but
And the scenic views, you know.
hey, we like birds.
We to clarify, we do like the birds.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
I know. It's just,
Yeah.
but it's like you're he just wasn't prepared for that, and it was nice. It was nice to have somebody there say like, we got to protect the birds, but like there's, like you said, if he was, and this is, I'm not trying to shit on the lawyer, but like the lawyer would have been like, hey, this is an avenue we could take because in the ordinance it says something about birds,
Yeah.
and they obviously it didn't.
yeah, we didn't understand that.
So like my research committee, that's what we focused on. We focused on the ordinances, finding ways that we could pick apart their application. And some of the things that we focused on were stormwater, the fire plan. Eventually we went down the noise rabbit hole. Trying to think.
I think the main things, because the things you just mentioned there, they're kind of after conditional use. You go through this conditional use hearing, which basically is, do we have permission to do this? And then, okay, yes or no. If you now have permission to do it, now you got to submit things that are relative things, the stormwater, fire management. But it's kind of a nebulous area because in order to get approval for conditional use, the courts will also say you've got to demonstrate you're going to comply with these things, not by just saying you're going to comply, but demonstrating you're going to comply. And that was the Gettysburg case that we refer to. That was where Gettysburg won in part, is that the applicant wasn't demonstrating. They were saying they were going to comply with things. Samsung did this in Polk Township too.
Yeah, they did it a lot.
They said,
Polk.
we're going to comply. Well, that's not sufficient, apparently, because it doesn't hold up in court.
Yeah, that's in the Gettysburg Court of Common Pleas.
Hold on a second. He doesn't. That camera took a shit too. The buttons on the top left. Okay, so because of the cold batteries, we're gonna have to go back, and you were just talking about Gettysburg. And then what I want to do is I want to get into like post the initial lawyer speaking.
All right. So we were talking about how we were focusing on in the research committee, how we were looking at like stormwater, fire, glare, noise. So Gettysburg actually had to go to court. So they went to the Court of Common Pleas for their county, and then they went to the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. And they won both times. It took them about 4 years and over $160,000 in legal fees to do it. But they were able to beat the 1,000-acre solar.
How much in legal fees?
Over $160,000.
Okay, keep going. Where'd that money come from? Was that donations?
It came from the residents. There was the initial hearing they had 200 people at, and then they had about 40 in their core group. But he said about a handful of people actually did most of the hard work. And it seems to be a common theme because we noticed in Polk there was about 30 people involved, but only 5 people really did the work.
Right.
And then in our situation, we had maybe 100 people initially involved, and then it dropped down to like 20. And there was really only 5 of us that did the work.
5, 4. Yeah. By the time it was towards the end, the finish line, there was 4 of us.
Yeah.
4 of us and the lawyer.
Yeah, 4 of us and the lawyer.
Because we were separate at that point.
Yeah. So as we were saying with the lawyer, we separated in January. We had some.
So you separated from the group.
We separated from the group and the lawyer. We felt that it was going to be best to go pro se. That's when you're self-represented, where you basically wear your lawyer hat and you get to be a lawyer. So you get to ask the questions of the witnesses. You
don't have to go to the bar. You don't have to do. Can you do this everywhere? Can you do this in a regular courtroom, or can you just?
Yeah, you can. You be pro se in a regular courtroom.
All right.
Now, one of the things that happened that led to that is you were trying to reach out to some of the attorney's witnesses.
I was finding out that our group wasn't guiding the lawyer in terms of how to fight. Like, he kept bringing up birds, and I'm like, birds aren't in the ordinance. You need to use the ordinance.
Nor are they real.
That's what I keep hearing.
Keep going.
So I brought up the fact the glare ordinance was a slam dunk, which it was. We actually ended up winning because of glare was one of the reasons. Because it said you have to prevent solar radiation, avoid solar radiation or glare.
Concentrated solar radiation or glare was the actual wording of the ordinance, which turned out to be ambiguous from the applicant's point of view.
Yeah, they thought they meant concentrated glare.
This becomes a grammar question. This is kind of where it came down to with some of this stuff. Concentrated solar radiation or glare. They took that to mean concentrated glare.
Which is red glare, which their project doesn't create.
Well, they claimed it was red glare.
Yeah.
They made that connection.
What's red glare?
Red glare is worse than the sun, which is yellow glare.
Oh, so it's like on a different spectrum.
Yeah, they do like a color coding for glare. So you have green glare, which is milder, and then yellow glare. And then like the sun is like in the upper part of the yellow glare. And then there's red glare, which they didn't really define. But then their minds, concentrated glare is red glare, which is
bad glare.
Which is worse than the sun, which their project doesn't make. So therefore, we're in compliance.
But they invented that. They invented that in their narrative to argue that they don't violate the ordinance.
Yeah.
Because they showed they were going to cause glare. And they said that's okay because it's not red glare. Because they interpreted our ordinance to mean red glare. But that's not what the ordinance said. At least we mean the word or to be different than what they mean the word or to mean, apparently. Yeah. They took concentrated, the adjective, in front of solar radiation and put it in front of glare. Rather than concentrated solar radiation as one part or glare.
Yeah.
So they argued that the ordinance was ambiguous.
And that they felt the court would rule in their favor if it went to court. Dan, if you could hop back to my slides and go to slide number
Did that
20?
camera go down again?
It did.
20.
You got to say something, Dan.
Well, I just reset it, and then I was hoping that it would. You're gonna have to tell me where to stop on the slide, so I can't see numbers.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Keep going.
You got to reframe
I
it for
can,
her.
Actually.
You got to reframe it for her. That camera.
Do we want to back up though and talk about the the severing of the lawyer first?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay, we can do that.
Dan, you got to reframe.
Yeah,
that
that's
camera.
where I was going to have it right there, but we can back up if you want to do the lawyer
Dead center.
part.
Yep, right there. Okay, where were we?
So we were talking about how we separated from the group and the lawyer. There was a few reasons. We didn't feel like the lawyer was putting on the best case. We thought we could put on our own case if we went separate, which is what we did. We went pro se, so we did self-representation. And then I also got kind of verbally attacked for all my hard work for the group, so I wasn't really getting thanked for it. So
Some insecure people.
I guess you could say that. So we thought it was best just to part ways, so that's what we did.
Okay.
So then we started working on our cases because we knew that we were going to have to do that. So that took about a month to do that. So that's why we put together the slides. I focused mainly on how is the sausage made? So like I looked up the developer, Lyons Renewable Energy, and said, how did they build other solar farms? So I went around and checked all their solar projects that they brag about on their websites and took screenshots of it showing how the ground is completely bare underneath it, how they scrape up the soils, the erosion and stuff like that, and put it into like a slideshow. And I presented it, and it was really funny in the beginning when I first brought it up. The attorney for the solar company is like, yeah, we object to this. This is not relevant. And the solicitor for the township's like, what do you mean it's not relevant? It's your company. And he's like, well, we don't know where she got this information from. So he asked me, he's like, Miss Fowler, do you know where you got this information? I'm like, yeah, it's off their website. You can see the URL on the screen.
This was great.
And and he's like, oh, it's still not relevant because it's not this project. And the solicitor's like, I find it kind of disturbing that you don't find your past work history relevant to this project. Like how you build a previous project is not relevant to this project. So
That makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So like, I mean, if I had a leaking pipe and I wanted to hire a plumber, would I hire the plumber that knows how to fix a leaking pipe?
Yeah.
Or would I hire the plumber that adds more holes to my pipe?
Yeah, but what they're arguing is like we need the plumber who's already fixed this pipe,
Yeah.
and it's like that person doesn't exist because it's never leaked before. Is that how I'm understanding their argument? Where
Yeah.
it's like you can't. This is not this project, and it's like yeah, but like
You can't. They're
No
basically
one-
trying to
no
say
one
it's an
has ever
apple to
done
an
this
orange. Like it's not a
No.
comparable.
no,
I think what they're trying to do is
they're trying to win and make you guys look stupid.
right.
That's what they're trying
they,
to do.
They have all the expert witnesses
Yeah.
that they can come in and swear in, and we're just a bunch of
Local
folks.
yokels.
Yes.
Yeah, without any money to hire all these big
They
guns.
can't be right. They don't have a degree.
Yes. He actually attacked me for that.
Yeah, what's your degree in? Nothing. This is
Yeah. When I told him
Yeah.
I was a high school graduate and I said I was an investigative journalist, he's like, "Do you have a degree to
Yeah.
prove it?"
I don't need to be. I don't need to be a marine biologist to go to SeaWorld and know what the porpoise is. Do you know what I mean?
She put a lot of time into her prep for her presentation, and I was really impressed because the attorney went after her with a vengeance. He objected over and over, at least 24 times. And
Yeah.
she would stop because objection, everything stops. Okay,
Yeah.
what's your objection?
And that's when you just gotta like breathe.
Yeah.
It's like let them talk it out.
And then
But you're pro se at this. At
Yeah.
This point,
Right.
aren't you?
Yeah.
right. So
But you can't just like try to talk over them.
Yeah.
Like there's like a procedure. So like when they object, then the solicitor has to get involved. And then he asks, what the objection is. And then depending what it is, and he asks me a question and then he makes a ruling.
right.
So like if I were to get denied, I wouldn't be able to talk about that subject further. So like, for example, I did have a picture of snow geese in my presentation.
Okay. So, barring any more camera issues, and like I said, if this happens again, I'll just put the 2-shot on and we'll just continue to be fine. Snow geese. We ended at snow geese.
Yeah. So I was talking about like, even though the birds weren't in the ordinance, since birds was like a big thing for our community, I did share a picture I took of the snow geese and a video in 2024 because all the prior testimony showed the snow geese were around in the past. And I just wanted the record to state that the snow geese have been here in the past, but they're still here. They're still using the farm fields for a flyover in wintertime to, eat, rest, recover, wherever they're going. So that was one of the things. But we were talking about how, Gettysburg won on glare, stormwater, and that the promise to comply was not enough, and that the applicant didn't file specific details on how it would impact residents. So the board really couldn't make a proper decision.
Right.
So that's kind of what we focused on in our case. So it's how are they not showing that they're not going to harm the residents? Well, they didn't have the glare study initially. They didn't have the sound study initially. They kept changing the plans. So initially there was 3 stormwater ponds. And then they changed it to, I think 12 or 14 or something like that.
Yeah. It almost was self-defeating the way the ordinance is written, because they had to do all this stormwater control. So you have to disturb the land so much more to contain all the stormwater. So you can't help but think, would it just be better if we just let the water run off? But obviously not, right? Because you'd have so much extra runoff.
Well, because now it's not being used for agriculture. Now it's being used. Now it's just literally you said they took off the topsoil. So now now it's just straight down.
So I'll ask you a question. Do you think water goes through a solar panel, or do you think it runs off a solar panel?
I'm going to take a guess and say that water runs off a solar panel.
You'd be correct.
Okay.
They tried to argue that solar panels were.
I'm do physics not work for solar panels? It's
they called them permeable. Yeah.
Pervious. Pervious was the word.
Pervious. Okay.
They said that the solar panels were pervious.
Yeah, that the water would.
With respect to stormwater calculations, we could just ignore their presence.
Yeah.
So, what's a couple 100,000 solar panels?
These people are monsters. All right, keep going.
Yeah, so
I want to hear about how you pro se kicked their ass.
Well, that's interesting because it ended up being 4 of us, really.
Yeah, really.
And it started with the other 2 people that were helping with us. There was friction there because they were asking a lot of questions, and they were eating up hearing time asking questions. And the group was getting mad because they've hired this lawyer who's getting paid by the hour. And we've got expert witnesses, I guess. At that point, we had a couple of them that were listening in on Zoom, and they're all billing by the hour. So in everybody's head, there's this meter running at $800 an hour for these hearings.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's stop asking questions. So it got to the point where they felt alienated and they left. But we worked with them on a pro se basis to try to develop this case on our own, because we felt the attorney just wasn't going to present enough evidence to win.
Yeah. So our friend, he focused on glare. So he went down the rabbit hole in glare. He went down for months on the glare and put together a fantastic report and actually presented it as an expert witness as an engineer, which was really incredible. And then Scott worked on fire risks and the cadmium risk. If cadmium gets on fire, it's considered a toxin, and how we don't have fire protection. And then I focus more on how the sausage was made, how did they do the past projects, showing how, they show off these things, how muddy they are. If we want to switch to my slides, let's see.
Oh, Jesus. Curveball to Dan.
Sorry, Dan.
Get to Gwen.
Well, I think
still have it there.
I think your objective there was the stormwater, because that's specific to ordinances. But it also was, I think, a qualitative thing to show the supervisors this thing's going to destroy the farmland. You guys know that this solar farm is going to destroy the land, and she proceeded to demonstrate that with her exhibits.
What page would you like?
We're going to leave it here for a second, but I'm just going to read off my notes from here. So they had 75 acres that were going to be covered with solar panels, out of the whole project. If you were to determine how much of the area was going to be impervious. So I figured out how much water would be if you got a 1-inch rainfall on 75 acres of land. How many gallons of water do you think that is?
Dan, why are you scrolling?
No, sorry.
Jesus. I'm going to say hundreds of thousands of gallons. Am I close?
Yeah, I think so.
A little close. I mean, it's 2 million gallons.
So
for 1 inch
lots of
rainfall.
hundreds of thousands of gallons of water.
Yeah. So the best way to look at a solar panel, in my opinion, is it's like a miniature roof. So it's like having a roof on your house, and the water, if you don't have a gutter, it's just going to go off, and then there's a trough underneath, your roof.
Yeah.
So imagine that all on the farm field. You're going to have all these little troughs, and if you get a lot of rain, that water was just going to keep going down the slopes.
And imagine Windsor Township with steep slopes.
Yeah, I mean, we had slopes that were greater than 15% in places.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like
Okay.
it was just not flat. So like when all the projects I showed from this project company, they're all fairly flat. Our project was nowhere flat. Like it was mostly slopes.
And we had that other place to compare to about 20 miles from us. Over
The Lyons project.
Yeah, the Lyons Solar project, where that was relatively flat. And we saw all sorts of erosion.
I mean, the one time under the railroad bridge, there was 4 feet of water, like under the bridge
From that?
from the project. Yeah. But we did get like a 10-inch rainfall. So
There was some outrageous rain we had the one summer, which wasn't normal, but it really showed what, the damage could be because this land was exposed. And there was a farmer across the street that we learned that his well got ruined.
Yeah.
He drilled another well and still doesn't really get clear water out of it. So these water problems were a problem, been an ongoing problem. And I know you researched Richmond Township in Berks County where this was located. There were people going to the township meetings complaining about all this stuff that was going on.
yeah, and the supervisors didn't really do anything about it. With the farmer, he did hire an engineer to like evaluate his well. And he said what they think happened is for these solar panels, they have to pile in these really thick I-beams or posts, or piles as they call them. So they have to pile them in with
They do those for bridges and
for a pile
guardrails.
driver. Yeah. So like if we want to bring that video up, we can bring that up. It's a nice
Whoa,
one.
one thing at a time for
Easy
Dan.
there.
Yeah. State.
I can, but
The speed of Gwen here.
Dan, just pull that rabbit out of your hat.
yeah.
Do you want to focus on this?
Yeah, I can go through this really quick since it's on the screen. So we were going back to the ordinance. It said, we're supposed to avoid concentrated solar radiation or glare. So I decided to use Google. I know, evil Google, but everybody says I Google it. So I was like, well, this will probably stand up in court if it goes to court. So I put in concentrated solar R, and you can see Google recommended concentrated solar radiation. So if you go to the next slide.
So that's the first part of that sentence in the ordinance, avoid concentrated solar radiation. That's a standard phrase. Google recognized it pretty quickly.
Yeah, now this slide should say concentrated glare. That was a typo when I was putting my presentation together, but you can see in the search bar, you can see I was writing out concentrated, and I was trying to write out the word glare, and I put GLAR, and it gave me concentrated glargine, and there's no glare in there. It's not a phrase that Google recognizes.
In fact, you can type the whole word except for the last letter, and Google still doesn't know that it's concentrated glare because that's not a phrase that is used.
Yeah.
But yet that was one of the core arguments that the applicant made, that they complied with the ordinance because the ordinance said avoid concentrated solar radiation or glare. So it came down to this really finely nuanced meaning of what is glare in this ordinance.
Yeah.
They were saying concentrated glare. We don't know what that is, but we think it's red glare. Google says, well, there is no such thing as concentrated glare. You made that up.
Yeah. And this is actually a hidden Easter egg. Nobody knows about this till now. But if you go back to the first slide, just look at the Google picture. See how it's kind of like a smiling coffee cup?
Yeah.
You go down to the other one, and he's like, oh, like, I don't like it.
I didn't even notice that. Okay.
It's a little Easter egg that I put in my presentation.
All right.
I like the detail to that.
Yeah.
It was a little humor. I thought someone would pick up on it, but
no one did. And that's
nobody did.
why you're a winner.
Yeah.
That's how I live my life around here.
Yeah. So
Are we still scrolling down? Or?
Yeah, we'll scroll down. I'll finish my slides really quick, and then we can go to. So on here, what you see, I have engineering, procurement, and construction companies. They're also known as EPCs. So for Leeward Renewable Energy, I abbreviated it as LRE. So I looked up a few of their projects, and then I found out like what their wattage was and how many panels they were using, because a lot of them were using the cadmium telluride panels that they wanted to use for our project, which is First Solar's thin film technology. So I was trying to find out, like, because it wouldn't tell us how many panels there's going to be on the fields.
Now,
like,
First Solar is the manufacturer in Ohio that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Made in America.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, you can continue scrolling. All right, we can skip this one. Skip that one. That's just like their code of conduct. I basically pulled out all their environmental language and used it against them. So this is their big plain solar project overview page. I put it all as a whole screenshot because I didn't want them to think I photoshopped it. So like, I would recommend if anybody's doing a presentation like this, I know it sucks having all like your whole background and everything on it, but it's best to do that you have the date and the timestamp so you know when you access the website. So you can see here, it's completely bare underneath the solar panels. Like the road is like, that doesn't look like dirt.
Yeah, it looks like construction in Florida.
And that's Ohio.
Wow.
That looks like a desert to me.
Yes.
All right, you can scroll down. So I have some more screenshots I took from them. Skip this one. So this is when they were constructing it in Ohio. I believe this was maybe early winter. So you can see there's some water laying there. It's completely stripped bare. The trees don't have their leaves on. Next one.
So I think the important thing there is this is what we're going to do to the farmland to create green energy.
But look how flat it is. Like, here's another view of that. Look how flat that is. Compared to those pictures I showed way in the beginning where you got the rolling hills.
Yeah.
Like, this is pancake flat.
And you can if this, let's say in 30 years they're like, all right, we're done with solar. How long would it take to be able to farm that land again? What would it take?
Well, you would have to pull out everything, and if they trench the cables underground, you'd have to dig all that up, and then you'd have to bring in amendments to the soil to make it active again.
Oh,
it'd be like going to the home center and buying bags of garden soil and
just dumping it out there.
Yeah, like you literally.
And
have
it
to
wouldn't be
start
the
over.
same soils when you were done doing that.
No, it wouldn't.
Because I don't know how much you know, but like agriculture, like you got the different layers of soil, and you need all the different layers in order to grow things.
You really can't restore it.
Well, yeah, I'm a big fan of regenerative farming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, you can scroll to the next
Yeah,
one.
you'd probably have to do something like that for a long time to really bring it back.
So here's an example of one of the trenches that they dug to do the
wires?
The wires. So like they have inverters and also what's the gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the name of it.
The transformers?
Yeah. So you have the inverters and the transformers.
Step-up transformers?
Step-up transformers on the field. So this might have been where they were trying to connect some of the inverters with those. I'm not sure which. But you can see it's, they're digging that pretty deep. So you'd have to dig all that out to be able to farm the land again, because otherwise you're going to be tilling into wires. Okay, next one. And those are just the posts for the solar there.
Oh my God.
So this is the same facility. This is the substation that they built for it. You can see there's a lift there in the front. Those are pretty big. If you've ever seen one of those in person. The flag is up there by the lightning rods. They're supposed to have lightning rods on top of the substation per the requirements. And that was another thing that we had with our project is they were arguing about whether or not they would be able to meet the 20-foot height requirement that our ordinance has. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to even bother because, they were citing that they were going to just follow the electrical code. But it's like our ordinance says you can't be above 20 feet.
So how are you going to do your lightning rods?
That's what we asked. They didn't have an answer.
Interesting.
All right,
Next
you
one.
can scroll down.
He's your monkey. You just got to tell him what to do. He can't find his mouse.
Yeah, I'm just going to go through them pretty fast just because it just gives you the visual reason of how they build a solar farm, because most people don't know how they build these. So here's another big plain. Again, this is in Ohio. It's completely stripped. I mean, there's no sight of grass.
Do they follow the sun? Or do they just sit there like dumb shits?
It depends on the project. We learned that the Lyons Solar Farm does do some tracking. Some of them are fixed. Ours was going to be fixed. All right, next one.
On a hill.
Yeah. All right, so this one's a different project. This was done by Solve Energy EPC. This one was out in the desert, and you even can see in the upper left, you can still see there's some like vegetative stuff, but you can see here in the foreground that it's all been bare and it's like flattened out. Next. All right, so this is where I brought in my buddies, the pile drivers. You can see they're wearing hearing protection. You can see those beams I was talking about that they use. That's what they use to put the racking gear on for the mounting the solar panels to.
They literally drive them into the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, I would like to bring up the pile driving videos if you don't mind.
Now, the project, the 440 acres near
to
us.
watch Dan do this.
You got this, Dan. I believe in you.
How many piles were proposed for the project we were involved with?
That's the one.
It's like over 10,000, wasn't it?
Let me look it up here. I have it on one of my slides.
So you got to play the sound of this because it is. Yeah. Turn 6 or 7 and 8 down just a little bit because it's going to get wild. They are loud.
Make sure you unmute it then.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready, Freddie.
Watch your ears.
We're watching. This is just what you hear for days. Well, that's terrible.
When you are
And then there was another one that was like a little shorter, but that one
might be after this ad.
Okay. But with the pile driving, it's not just one pile driver. When we get to the Lyons drone footage, you could have multiple pile drivers on the field at once. And you add in the topography of rolling hills and the echoing of noise.
Is this it?
Yeah.
All of those were done that way.
Yeah.
How long does it take to do one? Couple minutes?
If I recall correctly, it takes under a minute to do one if it's set up. But if it has to like crawl to the next spot, it's about 2 minutes.
Look at all of them. So if you wanted to farm that land again, you got to pull all those out.
Yeah.
Right.
That's like worse than pulling teeth.
Oh.
And that's what you think might be part of the problem with that farmer across from the Lyons Solar Farm is that they did this to the land on the other side, and they did them deep enough that it damaged the rock underneath. So now you've got
it damaged the water table.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So now all the water is going through the cracks in the rock.
That's speculation, but yeah,
that's what the
thinking.
engineer told
Yeah.
the Lyons farmer. He said that the pile driving of those posts that we just watched, and also the big ones for the substation, which are even taller, they go in apparently further, that they damaged, that they put fissures and cracks in there, and that it's going to take time for it to heal.
Now, in the project in Windsor Township, we probably had about 45 different residences.
Yeah.
Along the perimeter of that whole project, and they were all on well water. There's no city water out that far.
Yeah.
So,
and then all of a sudden now you're losing your water.
Possibly,
It's
a risk, right?
Yeah. Are we going back to this?
Yeah. So for our project,
there?
the applicant was proposing 13,500 piles
13,500
that they'd have to drill into the ground. Yeah.
for your project.
For our project, for 440 acres, they're going to drill in 13,500.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Next slide. All right. Next one. So this was McCarthy Building Companies, also known as McCarthy. This is another EPC. But you can see on their own picture on their website, it's completely bare. You can see they put the crates there for the solar panels, and some of the piles are just laying there, like getting ready in preparation for a site. Next slide.
Photovoltaic?
Yeah, it's another name for solar panel.
Photovoltaic. Yeah.
Photovoltaic. Okay.
So here's a bigger picture of that site that they were using on their website. This is part of the Rabbit Brush, which was a Leeward renewable energy project. It's completely stripped. It's flat. Next one. All right. So this is...
that's pretty.
Yeah, this is the EPC's website for McCarthy Building Companies. You can see they're showcasing one of their solar projects, and you notice that it's kind of bare around the solar panels. You can see some vegetation in the upper right, but for the most part, it looks stripped. All right, next slide. All right, we can skip this one. All right, here's another EPC. This is Blue Ridge Power. Again, you can kind of see that the vegetation has not...
What happened to Narnia right there? Why is there just one... I hope that's not a person's home who's like, I am not moving.
There's probably, if I had to guess, based on everything I know, there's probably like a wetland or something, or
some preservative or preserved.
I don't know.
Yeah, some preservative.
Yeah. Lots of preservative.
Like in all of our food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is a metaphor. It's a metaphor for that.
But you could see like along the road there, like it's still bare.
No, none of these are attractive.
Yeah.
And not only that, it just seems to me like, man, what a waste of money.
Yeah, and you'll see here, like my description for this was the ground appears disturbed and bare in some locations, and some panels appear to be reflecting light similar to a body of water. Because that's one of the things that they were concerned about with the birds is birds will see solar panels at a distance like that, and they think it's a body of water, and they'll try to land on it, and then you can get bird fatalities. But the reason
not to mention bird poo.
Well, yeah, there is that too.
I was watching one of the videos last night. Apparently, that's a problem.
Yeah,
it is actually.
I heard it's a big problem.
Going back,
it doesn't just go right through the panel.
No, they're not soluble.
Well, some of the older panel designs, if you got something like that on a panel, it can create a hot spot in the solar cell, and that can be initiating a fire. Yeah.
I'm just letting you know.
But one of the things I wanted to point out is, since I was testifying as my own attorney, being pro se, I couldn't submit this as like
an exhibit
evidence per se. I had to say that it appeared to be disturbed. I couldn't claim that it was disturbed because I wasn't physically there.
I gotcha. Appears.
So like, it's one of those things I had to train myself over the 4 weeks as I prepped for my testimony. It's like, appears to be fill in the blank.
Right.
You know, like this appears to be.
Okay.
It's all about this hearsay testimony that's not allowed.
You can't do
hearsay. You can't say so-and-so said, you have to have first hand.
It's amazing in the world that we live in how important words and how they're used are important and how much. It's amazing that like in a courtroom where those things or a setting that you were in where it's like those words are very important, but like in our regular everyday life or the newspapers or the media, like those words don't matter.
Yeah.
Those words have no bearing on anything.
Here it really does matter because like
of course
numerous times the applicant tried to object to my presentation, trying to say it wasn't relevant or tried to say that I was making false claims or claims, like I didn't even know I hadn't been there.
Do you have video of that testimony?
I do. It's on my YouTube channel. Oh. I have both of, I have every single hearing actually up on my channel, but yeah, people actually have enjoyed watching mine because it helped them prepare to do theirs. So people are welcome to have that if they'd like. Next slide, please.
You're polite she is, dude.
I like that. I like people that are nice too. I don't mind doing that.
That's what she did at the hearing.
Yeah.
Next slide. Objection. Overruled.
Yeah, I always said make sure you say your please and thank yous.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is another one from Blue Ridge Power off their website. Grass anybody?
So they don't even hide it.
Like they're bragging about it. I mean,
it's in plain sight.
Well, it's amazing. They'll say they'll claim one thing when it comes to like a township or a municipality or a borough, but then when you go to like their website, you're like, hey man, everything you just said is not here.
Well, what was funny is the one landowner for Windsor, he told me when he ran into me, he's like, yeah, they did the Lyons project all wrong. They weren't supposed to do that. He was told that they were just going to essentially tiptoe into his fields, pile drive into his fields and mount the solar panels. He's like, they're not going to strip the land. So when I put this on, I think he saw it. He was there. His wife was there. At a later date, she came up to me and she thanked me for my presentation. So I don't think the solar company showed him this.
Wow.
So next slide, please. All right, so this is a drone image that we took with our family's drone on May 14th.
You know what that looks like? That looks like the parking lot for a drive-in movie theater without the movie theater.
Well, to me, I thought it looked more like Arlington Cemetery with all the piles sticking up. It kind of looks like.
Well, your explanation is much sadder and more appropriate.
Well, it's got that effect of like, you know how it is when you got the rows of tombstones.
Yes, because that's what you're doing. You're killing the land. You're killing it. You're killing all the flora, all the fauna.
Yeah, this is not
everything.
acupuncture for the farmland.
Yeah. That's a good way. That's a good way of doing it too.
There's nothing real pretty about this, but the beauty of it was that this was firsthand testimony.
This is my evidence.
Like here, we went out and we actually took this picture.
Yeah,
this does not appear.
Right. Well, she still had to say that a little bit because she had to describe what she saw in the photo.
Man, oh man.
So here you can see there's some of the piles are in the ground. Some of them are waiting to be set up. There's some piles of gravel. And then down on the bottom left, you'll see some tractors and rollers. And then like just a little bit up to the right of that, that's one of those step-up power transformers, which we'll show another picture of later. That's one of those units where they go into that, and there's, I believe, 6 there at the Lyons facility, and they actually make noise. I actually, they brought in an expert witness on rebuttal. Rebuttal's not supposed to bring in new information. They brought a noise expert in on rebuttal, and he said that the sound of the solar farm would be like the hum of a refrigerator. And I'm like, there's no way. So I talked to the farmer at Lyons, and he's like, yeah, I can't enjoy sitting out on my front porch anymore because it's too noisy. It's like, you know, like that industrial noise. And I'm like, really? So we went over there. I found a CDC NIOSH app that can do pretty accurate sound recording. So I actually went over there and did my own little mini sound study to measure recordings, and it was loud. It's not something I would want to live next to. And I was surprised because I thought solar farms went to bed at night. No, they're party rocking all night long. So it's not a comfortable noise. I can give you a link then to a playlist where I have some of that audio if you want to share that with the viewers. Then I kind of forgot to give that to you guys.
It's okay.
All right, next slide, please. All right, so we did the pile driving videos. I played those for the audience. That was great. So yeah, over 13,500 piles.
It was great.
It was great because when they were setting it up, it actually cut through early in my testimony. So it was like a cheat, like brain teaser, like early, like teaser of what was coming. It was hilarious.
Ting, ting, ting,
And it was deafening.
It was deafening because we were in a school auditorium.
ting, 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 ting,
Yeah. So yeah, they claimed they're going to recycle the piles, which is just a
gonna
joke.
happen.
Well, they
Stop
could.
it.
I think I would say they will recycle steel, but you know, solar panels, that's a different issue.
All right, next slide, please. All right, so this is another drone photo that we took. This was on July 30th. This was roughly 77 days after the last one I showed you, which looked like Mars. This one obviously has solar panels installed. You'll notice in the upper left, it has the reflections of the blue sky and clouds. That's got that effect that I was telling you about earlier where it can look like a lake. Yeah. If you look on the bottom center towards the right, where it's very bare, you can kind of see some erosion tracks, if you want to
you
call
can see
it.
like water, like where water was. Yeah.
So if you go to the next photo, it actually zooms in a little more so you can see it better.
Oh.
So like if you look between the row
So
on
that
the
water,
right,
that water doesn't get soaked up by anything. It just runs. It's like putting water on pavement.
Yeah.
Well, because I look at you know, old farming, and you look at new farming, and I don't know how this happened, but somebody did like a cross section, and it's about like irrigation and water flow and all that stuff. So like old growth stuff grows really far down, and it helps with all the water runoff. And the new stuff, if there's usually like the roots are not very long.
Yeah. And
then up top is just, you know, so the water runoff that's how you get like flash floods and crazy shit like that.
Yeah. So here I said that, you know, the ground appeared mostly bare and flat. I see evidence of concentrated stormwater runoff along the edge of the solar panel arrays, and there's evidence of past water flows. The applicant actually objected to this photo, and I couldn't talk about this photo anymore, so I got overruled on this one. But if you go to the next slide.
Cut to me, Dan. Sustained.
Yeah, but it was one of the few.
It was one of the few. I won probably like 98.9% of mine. Yeah, I won this one because this is one of the funniest moments in my testimony where I got exasperated and I said, you can see it on the screen.
Okay, we'll get rid of that one. What about this one?
Yeah, so I was smart because I knew he was going to do this to me. So I was like, I'm going to put the image in twice. So he takes the one out, but not the second.
Smart.
So yeah, you have to think a little smart and try to like one up their game. So like this is the same image, just zoom in, but you can clearly see.
It's the same image.
Same image. Zoomed
Hey, wait,
in.
the last one, go back up.
Yeah.
Scroll back up, Dan. You sneaky Pete. All right, go back down.
Yeah, it's just a little bit over to the right.
Okay.
But it's from the same image. I just cropped it slightly different just to make it look a little different.
I understand.
Yeah. So like if you look from the left, the second row there, see how there's a ditch there.
Yes.
I mean, and
Right
then
in
it
front
like
of it.
flows like under the third row of solar panels and
Yep.
then towards the fourth. And then like in the front there where those junction boxes are, you can see that it looks like there's water tracks. So yeah, he really did not like this at all.
So you can see why the township was having problems with stormwater runoff from this project. They clearly didn't have the ground stabilized, and yet they built on top of it all.
Yeah, and you can see like the sedimentation too.
And this is days after the other photo.
How much?
And all you see is some scrub growing in.
Yeah, 77 days after that first photo where we showed that they were putting the piles in, starting to put the piles in. Next slide, please. So this is something I would recommend if you are finding a solar farm is find out how many...
Jamie Walsh is calling me right now. Do you want to...
Oh, Jamie! Sorry, take it.
Hey, I'm in the middle of doing a podcast with Gwen and Scott. Do you want to say hi real quick?
Hi.
Hi, guy.
Hi, Jamie.
How you doing?
Good.
Great. It's great to be up this way.
Yeah. Well, you guys enjoy yourselves. When are you starting?
Oh, we already started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're in the middle of it. You're going to make a cameo.
Well, they are fighters, those two. Let me tell you, it was, and they helped us tremendously keep these solar farms out of like 5 areas up here in northeastern Pennsylvania because of the work that they did down their way. So I'm glad you got them on and you're doing a podcast, because as long as these tax credits are available for these companies to infiltrate Pennsylvania, they're not going to stop. So,
Well, that's what we were talking about, some of that a little bit. So,
Yeah, Jamie, I was showing them my presentation, showing some of my slides.
oh, nice.
can I love having you on, but can I call you back?
Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
You're the best, brother. Everything good?
Yep.
All right. Be awesome. All right. Bye-bye. Oh, I don't want to FaceTime him. Hey, he got a cameo.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jamie's great. We were able to help him out by sharing our information with them. And if anybody is fighting a solar farm and they need help, I'll give you my contact info so they can reach out.
We'll put that on. So can I... How many more slides are there?
A few.
Like hundreds or...
No. We're going to go faster.
Okay. All right.
So for this one, I would recommend if you are finding a solar farm, get a copy of the application. You might have to file a right to know request. That might cost money depending on your township if you get digital copies or physical copies. But make sure you get all the exhibits so you can review them and do a deep dive. So like this is how I figured out how many impervious acres there would be. This was from their engineering drawing plans. So I took the screenshot and then I did the math, and that's how I got to 2 million gallons of water.
2 million gallons.
Which is a lot. And then I had submitted actually the weather forecast prediction for that weekend, like after we testified. And they were calling for a 2-inch rainstorm. So you would multiply
4 million gallons of water.
Yeah. So that's nothing, right? With no gutter. So
Holy shit.
let's see.
And you saw with the Lyons drone footage what happens when you don't do anything underneath the panels.
Yeah, I think we'll call that done on my slides. I wanted to go to one of the drone videos for Lyons, and then we'll go to Scott's fire stuff.
Where would that be?
That would be on the solar education. So let's do the number 6, like the 3-minute one. We won't play it all. We'll just play part of it. This is
the most toxic thing in your kitchen. Your wife.
oh my goodness, it's plastic.
My wife's gonna hate me.
All right. So this is...
You don't need sound, Dan.
No, it's silent. So this is just a drone video showing the Lions.
You could hit play though.
Well, yeah, I got to move things. We got it. We're good.
Did you move it all?
So here's like the front part of the project for Lions.
This is the one by you guys, right?
This is in Richmond Township,
Okay,
Berks
yeah.
County, yeah. So it's about 103 acres. There's a railroad that runs through part of it. That's why there's some green kind of running between the two. Because that northern field is also part of the project.
Is that the railroad at the top part?
It's in the middle right now where you see the green.
Yeah. That's yeah.
Yeah, that's the railroad. But that green other field that's getting green, that's also part of the project.
My God.
So this was one of our motivations for why we did get involved, because we
We saw
went out and
this.
saw what it was.
It's like...
And this is, I thought it was terrible that this is what you're doing to farmland to put solar panels on it. I didn't know better.
So what? So we don't make this a mini series. What?
This is just to try to show the scale of like what a solar farm would look like. This one's about 103 acres.
So after you guys have been down this road and seen how the hamburger's made, what, in your estimation, Okay, let's do pros and cons. What are the pros and cons? And now that you've really deep dived this more than most normal people, not to say that you're abnormal, but most normal people will not deep dive this unless, like, you know, what's that NIMBY, not my backyard, like unless it's in their backyard, they're not really going to pay attention to it. So what do you see are the pros and what do you see are the cons?
I guess my first question would be, are you looking at it from the resident perspective or the developer perspective?
I would want to look at it from the resident perspective because I don't care about the developer perspective.
Okay.
Well, I could think if you don't like housing developments, maybe you'd rather have a solar farm.
Yeah.
Because that's the other way that land could go.
I mean, right now with Windsor Township, the one farmer that was part of this project, he's looking to turn it into a housing development now. So we're not going to actually be able to save the farmland, which is kind of sad.
I mean, I guess it's his land and it's America.
Yeah.
You know, but we should, you know, I don't know. It seems like we've lost this, I don't know, this romanticism or this poetry to the land and how it's used. And
it seems like we got to build. That's what they want to do.
No, you don't.
That's what they want to do. But I'm saying, like, people don't understand that you don't need to.
Yeah, it's just Jamie said it. These tax credits.
Yeah.
And what they're going to do is I think these developers don't look at and look, I'm not against development if it makes sense, but like I think that these developers would, you know, look, you know, after 10 years, they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. And the people whose backs were patted and, you know, thanks for helping us push this through or whatever, they're not going to get Christmas cards anymore. They're not going to get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're going to be forgotten. And then what's left? Yeah. You know, it's like, to me, once you ruin land like that, like what's left? It's a landfill. It's like, that's basically what it is.
And that was one of the things that I did with this project is the engineer for the Windsor project is actually the engineer that engineered Lyons that has all the water problems. Like their ponds, even though it's been over a year, that project still doesn't have working ponds.
Yeah. So it's like, what makes you, based on past experience, what makes you believe that this guy's going to do it right? Like, we're going to do it right this time.
Yeah.
Like,
it's kind of like communism. We haven't done it right to get it to work.
Yeah. Maybe because it doesn't work.
I know. Maybe
because, you know, all those people who are like, you know, like, you know, it's a little socialist. It's like, no, none of it. None of it. It all leads, you know what it all leads to? It all leads to this.
Well, I guess the one positive thing is it does generate electricity.
Yeah, but from what you said, it's like 20% of like what it's supposed to be.
I mean, I'd rather have a nuclear power plant personally because it's good. You're going to get a lot more bang for that. And it's going to run on. You can have lights at night, you know. you can use your.
Who needs lights at night?
You can use things at night. You know?
The only reason to have lights is for night. Nobody. I don't like.
It's not a good use of resources, in my opinion. Like I wouldn't.
I think it's a waste. I think it's a waste to get stupid people paid.
Yeah.
I think you bring up a good point there too. We talked about the capacity factor that here in Pennsylvania, 20% is your capacity factor for solar. That means you need 5 times the infrastructure to be able to generate power like a conventional power plant.
Just what's needed.
Right.
Yeah.
Not to exceed it, just what's needed.
Right.
Yeah. And that's assuming you got the perfect conditions, that it's sunny and you're getting all.
How many of these are either on the books in development?
There's too many.
I don't think we have a number.
We don't know, but I know there's way too many that have been developed or trying to get developed.
So, like, if you had like your Harry Potter wands, do you know what Harry Potter is?
Yes, I love it.
Okay,
I grew up
right.
with it.
So I'll excuse her for Aaron Brockovich.
There's no Oliphants in that though.
No, that's Lord of the Rings.
That's Lord of the Rings.
That's Lord of the Rings. 10 out of 10, all of them. Not the new ones. The original. No, the Hobbit's terrible. If you had like your magic wand, what would be the move? And if money's not an object, what would you do with all these solar farms?
Like, what would I do differently than what we did?
Yeah, if you could remove them, improve them, build more, what would you do?
I wouldn't build them.
After everything that you guys have seen, you would not.
I mean, the fire risk. Seeing the fire risk
at this scale, like you said earlier, like if somebody wants to put a few, like 3 in their backyard.
Like, I'm fine if you want to put them in your backyard. Fine, just I wouldn't recommend your roof.
I think that's really the direction it should go. You know, if you want to put it in your backyard, maybe not on your roof after looking at the fire stuff.
I'd put it like 50 feet from your house.
You know, years ago, solar was kind of like the back to basics, get off grid, live independently way of doing things. It
Yeah.
wasn't cheap,
Yeah.
but it was a way you could do that. We've taken it out of the hands of the individual. We've consolidated into these big corporate interests now that play this tax credit game. So we're kind of losing control of our own electricity. Like solar kind of gave you some independence. You could put some panels up, generate some of your power. You don't have any access to this stuff. You're buying this like any other electrical product. So you've got big corporation control.
I think control is the operative word there, because I think they want to control us. They want to control our ability to move around and not have our own sustainability. Like if you want to live off grid and stuff, they don't want you to be able to do that. So I think it's good for those type of, purposes. If you want to live off grid, use it, but
And I think there's probably locations, the abandoned mine lands that have no use right now could be, if we want to do this on a scale like this, we look at restoring
Stop
those
picking
lands.
farmland.
yeah. I mean,
Stop picking land and
warehouses.
shit.
Warehouse
Right.
roofs. You can do it on warehouse roofs. Though obviously we did show some of them burned, but
Yeah,
you
it was
know, like-
Amazon.
yeah. But I mean, there was another
Over
one.
parking lots.
Yeah, parking lots is another
Yeah, I've
one.
seen that. That seems like a great idea.
You can even get a free shower when it rains, because we were at Rutgers once and it was pouring pretty good, and it comes off the panels pretty good that you can get a shower.
So are they going to keep trying to do this down there, or are they going to, or have you guys pretty much kiboshed the opportunities for any company to come in there and do that?
So we were able to go against the attorney's advice, and we educated the township and got our solar.
Whoa. Attorneys aren't always right. You don't have to take your attorney's advice.
True.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I went with my friends from Gettysburg's suggestion. They said to educate your supervisors and planning commission and try to get the solar ordinance updated. We didn't think it was going to happen in the middle of the process of the hearings, because our hearings went over 18 months. We had 18 hearings. There's one hearing, but like they call them hearings because they're multiple evenings, but it's really just one long hearing. So we didn't really expect it to actually happen kind of like near the end of our hearings, but we were able to get it to update the ordinance and make it much more strict. So now if they came back with a proposal to try to build it, they would be at a much smaller scale, because they have to be 500 feet away from the edge of the property, which is so much better, because it was only like 30 feet.
We
before.
actually, kind of as a consequence of that, defeated a second solar project in the township that was
Yeah.
on the books from approval 2 years prior.
Yeah.
But they had never built it because it was contingent on what they called community solar, which was legislation that was supposed to enable that it didn't get passed in Harrisburg. So it just sat there. And then they came back and said, well, we want to just do it through what they call net metering, which is what, we could as individuals do if we had solar and fed it into the grid. And they got the surprise that, the ordinances have changed. And their lawyer didn't like that. The first thing he responded was, we have vested rights in, this approval. But it turns out that in the municipal planning code, if you have a time frame between conditional use approval and when you have to submit a land development plan, it doesn't allow you to wait 10 years to go ahead and build something.
Yeah.
You have 6 months. And after 6 months, if the township changes the ordinances, you have to comply with the new ordinances. So since 2 years had elapsed on their project from when they got their conditional use, they had to follow the new ordinance, and they made their project untenable.
Yeah.
They did not have enough setbacks to build.
Did you have anybody hate you guys?
The group.
The group.
Yeah, but I mean, but the group was against it anyways, right?
Well,
they were against the project, but they
the group didn't like how much time we spent in our testimony.
They thought our testimony was a waste of time.
But you guys won, right?
They
Ultimately?
I don't know
Yeah.
how they think they won, but if you read the decision by the supervisors, it's very clear that things from our 91-page legal brief that we wrote are in there. So we questioned their standing because of the company discrepancy on the lease for the land. They also wouldn't explain the relationship between the nesting doll companies that were involved. There was glare. So our friend who went on the glare, he definitely helped us win on glare. Trying to think.
Those are the two major things, I think.
Well, no, the other one was the character of the area, changing the character of the area, and that this isn't really considered an agriculture use. Because one of the things of the agriculture district is you're supposed to be able to farm. how are you supposed to farm if it's covered with solar panels? It's not really farming.
You can't.
Yeah, like I said, I eat solar panels, solar farms for breakfast. It's a joke because you can't eat them.
I think what really was helping us was this whole standing issue. You know how courts like to throw out people based on standing, like, oh, there was these election anomalies. All those cases got thrown out. You don't have standing, right? Yeah. It's great, right? The judge can throw it out on standing, take the rest of the day off. So he doesn't have to read 2,000 pages of transcripts. So in our case, I think we made a really good argument about how they did not have standing. Even though the township couldn't rule on it, the attorney, I think, did have that ace in the hole. It's just it couldn't get played unless this went to appeal.
Yeah, and he didn't really defend that in his brief. I read his brief as well, and he just used the same arguments he did in oral argument, and it just wasn't that good. So I actually went a step further. I analyzed the Gettysburg case. If you use Commonwealth court cases, you can use them as case law sites. So I used that where they actually tear apart like the ordinances and what the words mean, words matter, and then I went to the Windsor Township zoning ordinances and found like what the words meant. And it said that they had to have, basically either owned the land or had permission from the landowner and before they submitted their documents, which they did not have.
Okay. So number one, congratulations on everything. And it seems like you have more knowledge than experts, especially with like law and how to move the ball forward to benefit the people of your community. You also do like independent journalism stuff, right?
Yeah, I try to cover grassroots groups.
Do you want to tell me about that and pitch that a little bit?
I just wanted to just wrap up 2 points really quick, if you don't mind.
It's your show, Gwen.
Yeah, don't promote.
Dan
yourself.
and I will shut up.
I'm good at that.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to thank the research.
It just goes to show how much she cares about it.
I just want to thank the research committee members that put in all the time that we've put in the last year and a half, because honestly, if it wasn't for all the meetings that we did, all the independent research that we did, all the writing and proofing and editing, I don't think any of this would have been possible. I mean, I'm not saying the group's attorney's brief was terrible, but it wasn't strong enough, I feel, to stand on its own. Like, I don't think it would have been enough. But every bit helps, so get it.
Yeah, but how much? So how much would this have cost if it wasn't volunteers?
Well, the group, rough estimate, spent $87,000 on attorney fees.
But being with all your researchers and everybody putting in their time and 18 months of meetings and all that stuff, how much do you think that if you're
was more than a full-time job doing all the research
for
at least me. I'm
assuming a lot of other people too.
I mean, it took a while to write that brief.
I mean, I spent
final brief.
I wrote the brief went from half of July to early August, so it was like 3.5 weeks. I wrote the 91 pages.
I think the attorney probably charged about $10,000 for his 30-page brief, and you wrote a 90-page brief.
Yeah, so
it's doable. Like all of this stuff is doable.
Yeah, I do want to give a shout out to my lawyer friend and also Ben Herring for proofing my
Benny. Yeah. Friend of the show.
Yeah.
I love being able to
you,
say
Benny.
that.
Benny was awesome. He does pro se litigation as well.
Did not know that.
So I asked him, I said, hey, would you mind looking over it? And it was pretty funny. He calls me up one day and says, if you had told me this was your first legal brief, I would have said you're lying, because he said it was really good. So
it's actually your second.
Well, that's true.
She had to defend her status for standing as well in the hearing.
I should have mentioned we don't actually live in Windsor Township officially. We live in Greenwich Township.
Oh my God, a bed of lies. It's a bed of lies.
Well, we have like a sliver of Windsor on our farm. It's just for tax purposes, we're in the other township.
I get it.
So we're 0.56 or 0.58 miles away from the project site. And when we severed from the lawyer, the solar attorney's like, oh, she's not in the township. She can't be here. And the solicitor was going to throw us both out with the bath water.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, I guess we're writing a brief. And it was like one of those times where there was a hearing on a Thursday night and there was going to be another one on Monday. So it was like, oh, we got to write something like this weekend.
All weekend. That's all we did. We wrote a 7-page brief. looked up standing because he was trying to say like there's case law that you can't be there if you're not close enough or you're not living there or whatnot. So like we went down that, wrote that up, and basically proved him wrong. And then he actually wrote a brief to throw someone else out as a party. And I actually used his own brief against him because the hearing that we joined was number 2. And he said for this person that, you know, like we don't have any issues with the other people, but this person we do. Well, we were in that other people. So he couldn't reject our standing and it got overruled. So that's how we were able to remain parties.
This guy dropped hundreds of thousands of dollars on an education. And you're kicking his ass.
Yeah.
And it's so funny.
It's so great. Like every time I ask,
I don't know the guy. I don't even know who you're talking about. But just like he even has to admit that like if he was a normal person, he'd got to admit like that's pretty funny.
He did congratulate her after her testimony, after all the objections.
Yeah,
I think he knew that she was the person that he had to remove.
I was the troublemaker because I was the lady with the camera. So I would go in there and record it all. So I'd have a copy of it because like you can buy the transcripts.
Can I ask you the rudest question ever?
Yeah.
How old are you?
We gotta think about that.
First question: how old do I look?
I like mid-20s.
Who said you were 14 recently?
On it, like no BS. Like how old?
I'm 32.
You accomplished all this.
Yeah.
You're my wife's age.
And I don't have a college degree. You guys can do this, guys. You don't need a college degree. I'm not a lawyer. But
and you don't have to write a 92-page brief. The folks...
No, I admit, I went all out on our brief because I was writing it from the approach that this was going to court. Because I am of the mindset, always play like you're always behind. So I wrote it all out so that the court wouldn't have to read through 1,999 pages of transcripts. So they would know what happened at every single hearing.
You know, what happened was
arguments.
that the lawyer, the applicant found out that we got this candidate elected who campaigned against solar farm.
Yeah.
So they tried to have him thrown out of the hearing as well.
Yeah.
They wanted him to recuse himself from voting because he was biased.
Well, they claimed he was biased.
Well, he didn't do that. But they tried to get him out.
This is like a courtroom drama.
So we won a vote of 2-1. So it was two denial votes and 1 approval vote.
Okay, before we go, can you pitch yourself? You're doing independent journalism. I think it's marvelous. So tell us about.
Well, lately it's been solar farms and township meetings. So right now, kind of light on that and saving the country. So if anybody has events that needs coverage, let me know. I do YouTube and Rumble and Facebook.
And how do people find you?
They can search for me by my handle Gwenny7, GWYNNY7 on YouTube and Rumble. And then on Facebook, it's Gwen's Notes, GWYN''S, and then the word notes. And I started that Facebook page when I started following the convoys. So there's a lot of medical freedom stuff on there as well.
And how often do you get taken down?
Well, since lately it's been grueling solar hearings and township meetings.
Yeah, when you jump back into the medical stuff, it's like gone.
Yeah. I mean,
we've gotten a couple strikes, and then
I take my strikes with badges of honor because it means you're doing something right.
I agree.
They didn't like the Trevor Loudon stuff.
Yeah, I got put in jail for Trevor Loudon twice.
What's Trevor Loudon? Is that Loudoun County stuff?
Trevor Loudon. And
why do I know that name?
He's very outspoken. He's from New Zealand. He lives in America now, and he speaks out against communism and Marxism and exposing
New Zealand, she was nuts.
Yeah,
the way she treated people in that country.
I think it's a he, but that's okay.
You think Jacinda Ardern's a dude?
Yes.
You think so?
Yeah.
Like the younger pictures, I don't think she looks like. I think she looks. Like
I haven't seen the younger pictures. I only saw the ones when they were acting.
No, now
crazy.
she looks like Skeletor, and she looks like her soul was sucked out of her.
Must have been that COVID shot.
It's terrible.
I'm sorry.
That's our third strike.
No. Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Thanks. Find us on Rumble, quick.
Switch to Rumble. No, I did a podcast. What was it? 3 weeks ago?
Something. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like a guest at a podcast, and they nuked him 2 days ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
They love to do it after the fact.
Well, he got it back.
Did he really?
Couldn't believe it.
How?
I don't know.
Does he have like a lot of subscribers?
He texted me like yesterday. Yeah, he texted me like yesterday afternoon, and he's like, they gave it back.
Maybe he has a large following. But before we go, I would just give a few tips to anybody who's fighting this.
Yes.
Get involved. Attend meetings.
Make sure you tell people where to reach out to you. And are those the things that you just mentioned that they can reach out to you?
And then
Okay.
my email address is just gwenny7@protonmail.com.
Okay.
Same GWYNNY7. Send me an email and then we'll figure it out. I don't like to give out my number.
No, you shouldn't.
All right. But get involved, attend meetings, and also please help find good candidates to run for supervisors, because that's kind of like what I'm looking at right now is trying to find another supervisor. It's not easy, but it's a necessary evil. If you don't have a solar ordinance in your community, please write one before you get an
Okay.
application coming to your door. Because if you have one in place, it is much easier to fight these things to use an ordinance than to not have anything and then have to go through like a variance hearing or a special exception. It's just easier if you have something. If you need some examples, I can give you Mount Joy Township. I can give you ours. I can give you Polk's once I get it. I have examples, so I can give you ideas for that. There's also some good stuff in New Jersey that you found. Do you remember where that
You
was?
found something good in Jersey?
I know.
Yeah.
I was waiting for. That was a good one. Come on, did you find UFOs in Jersey?
It was regarding right to farm law in New Jersey, that it was in regards to solar projects that were 10 acres or less.
Yeah, but it had some good stuff about
It had
setbacks.
good stuff about setbacks. Like you have to have this much setback if you have no buffer, a little less setback if you've got a buffer.
It had noise requirements too, which I thought was
They did.
vitally important after finding out that solar farms make a lot of noise.
The basic idea here is that these things are they're nuisances to neighbors.
Yeah.
People don't want to see them. They don't want to be affected by them, so you hide them. If
And
you're gonna
glare is
build
a
them, you hide
problem.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, glare can be a problem for pedestrians, vehicles, and all sorts of things. If you were to get an application that comes in, make sure you do an RTK, pay the fees if you have to, get all the exhibits, all the engineering plans, review everything, tear it apart, compare it to your ordinances, because you can only win on your ordinances. You can't win on emotion. As much as you love your emotions, they're not going to win. We will not comply is not good enough. I can give you the Mount Joy case law for that. It is awesome to use that. And do not underestimate intimidation. It definitely worked in Polk. It worked at Lehman. Their first team hearing at Lehman in Luzerne County, they had over 100 people outside stuck in the parking lot. They had to suspend the hearing to move it to a university. So they had a room big enough to account for all the people. If you get to the point where you have a hearing, whether it's before the zoning hearing board or the planning commission or the supervisors, like a conditional use hearing, become a party to the proceeding. Like, it sounds really weird when the solicitor gives the spiel, like, this is your time to become a party and ask questions and stuff. It's like, yeah, because like for the second Windsor project that we helped kill with the new ordinance, there was a whole bunch of people there for it, but nobody became a party. It's like, these people don't realize what's going on. So definitely become a party, sign up, ask questions, cross-examine their witnesses, present a case if you want to, get to play your attorney hat, which is nice. You don't have to have an attorney to win. Polk showed that you can win without one. If you do get an attorney, I would recommend fundraising for that. And then to provide just general information to your community, I'd make up a flyer or something to educate them, because most people don't know much about solar. They think, oh, solar is green. Green is good, you know. That's pretty much as far as they go with it. We've helped defeat solar in Windsor twice now. Lehman Township, Nanaco, Cressona Borough, North Manheim Township, Polk Township. I'm helping someone else right now. So, any questions?
Dan, what'd you do at your week this week?
Wow, do I feel like somebody who does nothing with their life.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to have to rename this one instead of saying what a week, what a year and a half.
Easy there. I say what a week around here.
I think we've been here for like 3.5 hours. Yeah,
Yeah, I probably could have gone through more too.
I know, and that's why I'm like, at some point, like people are
Can
gonna.
we go back to the fire screenshots? He's got one that's pretty funny.
No, Gwen, we're done.
It has one about birds.
Look, here's
humorous.
She's going through solar
I can't let-
litigation withdrawal.
Yeah, it's like at some point the movie's got to end, the characters got to, and you got to move on to the next.
But it's a humor slide, though.
Where is it?
It's on my dad's. That's like the last one.
Look at Dan having to do his thing.
You got this.
While he's looking for that, Dan, switch cameras. Oh, there we go. While he's looking for that, I want to say I'm incredibly impressed by you, and I'm incredibly impressed by you. And I think that, I mean, you literally did David and Goliath, and you're still doing it, and you're not giving up.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that my friends at Gettysburg told me is the only thing they asked in return when they gave me help and advice was pass it on to someone else who's fighting one of these, because the more people that we educate to fight this, the better our chances of saving Pennsylvania from this.
There is nothing wrong with people learning more.
Yeah.
All right. So we have to did
go
you
all
pull
the
it
way
up,
on the
Dan?
bottom.
This is an easy one for you, Dan. Just scroll all the way.
Yeah.
Look at you, Skippy.
Yeah, here we go.
Oh, do you want me to read this?
Yeah. So
Bird started a solar farm fire. The company that owns the California Valley Solar Ranch solar farm, Clearway Energy, had blamed the fire on, quote, an avian incident without saying what exactly happened at the remote facility in the grid grasslands between Los Angeles and San Francisco. The blaze damaged power poles and wires at the 250 megawatt plant and knocked out 84% of its generating capacity, causing an estimated $8 million to $9 million in losses, the company said. Holy shit.
yeah, so they say that, you know, birds might not like solar farms, but it might be that solar farms don't like birds either.
We lost your camera, so I'm now panning Scott's camera. So, all right. Before we have to, is that turning back on? Are you trying that?
Yeah.
Giving it a shot?
Yeah.
I don't
we
know.
Have a nice goodbye.
I feel terrible. I don't know what happened with the cameras today. I think it's the cold weather.
It's okay. We can just do a picture at the end.
I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that this never happens again, because unlike other people, I can say, hey, we were wrong and I'm sorry. And we will try our best to never have it happen again. So, Scott, Gwen, don't stop believing. Don't stop doing what you do. It's absolutely phenomenal. And anybody who gets like who Jamie Walsh is a fan of I'm a fan of. So
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you guys for what you did. And
Thanks.
you're going to keep
Yeah.
in touch, right?
Yeah, definitely. And
All right.
I mean, I thank Jamie for sending some people my way because he had found some people that needed help and I was able to help them out and they won. So
now
it's
that he's in
awesome.
Harrisburg, careful what you wish for.
Well, hopefully he's going to be able to get some change, positive change, hopefully.
Well, I think if anybody can do it, it's that guy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me
he's
too.
a good guy. All right. Anything else? Nothing? Scott?
Nah, that's fine.
Gwen? Nothing?
No, just
You
keep
sure?
fighting.
All right. Dan, you want to say it?
What a week.
Keep that playing. That's the worst sound ever.